Good evening. It's Thursday, November 13th, 2025. I call this meeting of the Board of Directors of the Rossmoor Community Services District to order. Can we get a roll call, please?
Good evening, directors. Get a roll call for Director Maynard.
Here.
Director Shade. Here. Director Rimney. Here. Director DeMarco.
Here.
President Searles.
Here.
Everybody's present.
All right, thank you. And to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight, we have Director Maynard.
Please stand. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
And tonight, we have a special presentation from the Orange County Sheriff's Department. Captain Ryan Pierce will present a community safety update. Welcome, Captain.
Good evening, and thank you very much for the welcome. Members of the board, brief update. And again, this being my first one for this community, I apologize if it's short. So calls for service, quarter three last year of 2024, calls for service in the community were 845, compared to quarter three in 2025, 914 calls for service. Total reports, criminal and non-criminal, quarter three of 2024 was 56, and quarter three for 2025, a total of 40. So we've had a good reduction. Our parking and traffic citation statistics. July through September of this year, we had 28. In the month of October alone, we've had a total of 14 parking citations issued. And traffic citations, July through September, we've had 13. And solely in the month of October, we had a total of 7. Some notable activity. There was a report not generated, it generated in this city, but it was found, or excuse me, in this community, but found not to be, had taken place in this community, was a kidnapping, false imprisonment investigation related to domestic violence. And it was related to individuals traveling through the community, so it wasn't connected in any way. It was just reported here, but it happened outside of the community.
Yeah.
Captain Pierce, when you lift your head, you lose the mic. So you.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, that's all right. Just letting you know it cuts out.
Okay, I apologize for that.
No worries. I know how it's hard to read. You want to address it.
Okay, was that able to be heard?
And maybe repeat the last
Okay,
section.
so a notable incident, there was a kidnapping, false imprisonment investigation related to domestic violence on individuals that were traveling through the community. There was no connection to the community. It didn't take place here, but it just was reported when they came through this area, if that makes sense. In July and August, we had 4 residential burglaries in which the suspects used surveillance cameras in at least one of the incidents. All involved entry through shattered rear sliding door windows. So rear entry was the preferred method in those residential burglaries. And in July of 2025, there were 2 high-value loss cases involving a fraudulent call or computer security alert where the victims were deceived into withdrawing or transferring money into the suspect's control. That is my brief report and update, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Director Maynard, any questions?
This is a little off topic, but we have 2 captains now, right? You and someone else. Can you explain that, how that works?
Absolutely. So with the contract for the city of Stanton, one of the agreements was that my role, being the chief of police for Stanton, is that we would take on a shared role. So it offered a savings reduction for the city of Stanton in having my position assume responsibility over the unincorporated areas in western Orange County. So for the community of Rossmoor, unincorporated Anaheim, and Midway City, I have responsibilities there for the deputy sheriffs and the sergeants. in response to certain types of calls, and as well as the city of Stanton. So if I'm unable to, if I have something going on in the city of Stanton, then Captain Sotelo would be responding out here to your community, but if there's nothing going on in the city of Stanton, then I would be out here.
And where's the other captain stationed out of?
He's stationed out of headquarters at 550 North Flower. So,
Santa Ana?
yeah, in Santa Ana. So, seeing as how the deputies that patrol the community of Rossmoor, Midway City, and unincorporated Anaheim, all of those deputies go out of the Stanton substation, that it makes sense that those individuals are, excuse me, I apologize for this, it makes sense that those individuals would be under my span of control while they're working.
From a leadership standpoint, is there any issue with handing things off and things getting dropped between two leaders, between
Absolutely.
two captains?
No.
So we should have no concern?
You should have, there's no concern whatsoever. So myself and Captain Sotelo are in constant communication. I have great working relationships with, again, Captain Patello. When he was here, if he would have stayed, everything would have been seamless. It's been seamless with Captain Sotelo. So as long as we're in constant communication, nothing falls through the cracks.
Okay. Last question. This is now about what you presented. You mentioned a few robberies. Were they, did you say it was in the backyard sliding door?
Burglaries, yes.
Burglaries, okay.
Yes. So that was, according to the statistics and in these events, that's where entry was forced, was through sliding glass doors in the back.
In the backyard?
In the backyard.
Is there any correlation of people who don't lock their gates? Did they lock their gates, or do they hop over, or do they just open the gate, go behind, and have access to the house?
I don't have those specific details, but one thing that I can say to share with the community is that if they don't lock their gates, if they're not in the habit of doing so, that they do lock all windows, they lock all gates, that they invest in security cameras, and that if they're going to be away for an extended period of time, that if they've got good neighbor relationships, or they've got a family member, somebody that they trust to check on their home for them, that if those things are in place, that's the best defense against these types of people.
Mm-hmm. And were those burglaries during the middle of the day? Was there you already said there's a trend. People are going behind, they're going the house through the backyard. They're going through slide doors. Are they going during work hours, or is there any time frames that connect these?
I would have to go back and look at the specific times of these ones that were provided.
Okay, that's all I have.
But they generally they do take place at all times of the day. If
Okay.
they notice the trends that some people watch for a little bit of time, or they just take the opportunity where they see somebody leave and there's no cars in the driveway. That might just be all they need.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Director Shade?
Welcome. We're going to be working tonight on some decisions that we're working with as far as our e-bikers in our community go, and trying to work with law enforcement and see what we're going to be doing with that. Is there something that you can tell us or share with us that you guys are doing to work with the e-bikers?
Absolutely. So we've been, Sharon and I have been in communication with each other, reference this topic, as well as Captain Sotelo has been involved, and know that the Sheriff's Department is very forward-thinking in that education is the biggest thing for the e-bikers, providing that education to the young men and women that are riding them and to their families on e-bike safety and proper protocol.
Is that something that you guys are doing with the schools, or is it just community?
It is something that has been taken to the schools, yes.
It has been working with the schools?
Yes.
Okay, so is that programs that are with the school administration or the LaSalle School District set up?
I would have to check with the LaSalle School District on that one for this community specifically, but it is something we have done in a lot of our contract cities and other unincorporated areas where we do work with the schools, talk with the administration, set something up so that we're educating as many people as possible.
Okay, I'd like to ask that next time we get to see you and visit with you, that you are able to share some of the details on the reports that you mentioned as far as the burglaries go, so that we can share with our community and let them know these things are happening and opportunity-type crimes. And also the school that you're working with as far as the e-bike, and what programs you guys have that you're working with them as far as education goes for them.
Okay,
That'd be great. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Director Remne?
Thank you. Welcome, and thank you for being here. You mentioned something about computer-related scams, and this is something that our seniors ask about quite often. Is this a new pattern emerging or a continuation of the same thing we're reminding them about?
This is a continuation.
Okay.
So this, yeah, it's been going on for quite some time, and it's very important for people to understand that nobody's gonna call you and solicit. They are gonna call and try to solicit, but nobody that is legitimate is going to ask you for that $20,000 right now. So there are identity theft. I looked at my other book, but on the Orange County Sheriff's Department website, and I'm sure you might have been briefed on it, we do have a pamphlet of how to protect yourself against those types of crimes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Director DeMarco?
Welcome, Captain Pierce. Thanks for coming today. So this was the quarter report, last quarter, right? July through September. Or what's your dates?
It was July through September.
What's that?
Yes, July through September.
Okay, third quarter. Okay. So let's see. The first observation, what you were saying. So in the last quarter, there were 28 parking tickets, and I'm assuming this is during street sweeping days?
I would have to check the specifics on those, but I would assume that quite a few of those might have been on street sweeping, yes.
Okay. That's not a lot. It's, for having, let's see, that's going to be, 12 weeks times 2 days. So that's not a lot. I know there's a lot, I'm just telling you, there's a lot of violations in Rossmoor for street sweeping, and many of the residents don't get their curb swept. And what I've observed is there's a lot, because there's not full coverage or even half coverage in Rossmoor from the Sheriff's Department. It's like there's this constant violation where a neighbor just will not move the street. So I'm just bringing that to your attention that, and I know resources are thin, and I know this is probably the lowest on the totem pole, right, for your department is street sweeping. But it is, I know, a complaint that we get is the enforcement for parking during the street sweeping. So just wanted to bring that up. Can you just talk about how long have you been the captain? When did you come in to cover the unincorporated here on the west side?
So that was effective July this year.
Oh, July, okay, so it's been,
Yeah.
So can you comment on just the coverage in Rossmoor in terms of patrol cars in the past, since July and like for the third quarter? Is there most days a patrol car and most evenings a patrol car in Rossmoor?
Yes, there is, but it's important to understand that even though there is a unit assigned to the Rossmoor area, that's dependent also on what do our other pockets of an unincorporated Anaheim and Midway City look like. Are we short? Did somebody have to go to training? So there's a bunch of variables, and are they responding to another call to back up their unincorporated partner in one of those areas? So to have somebody fixed here and stay and be visible for that full 24 hours, 2 shifts, so 2 different cars coming in, is highly unlikely. if there are calls in, and they're patrolling the area like they do here. But if they get called to back somebody up in unincorporated Anaheim, then they're going to have to go assist over there before they can come back over here.
Yeah. And again, I just asked this question. It's the questions that's asked of us, so thank you for
Understood.
the response. There was, even though, I mean, and I just want to ask you this, if you know anything about it. There were 2 accidents on one on Orangewood last Friday, about 6 p.m., one on Orangewood, one on Shakespeare and Harrisburg. Do you know anything about those accidents? I know it would be a CHP matter, but I was just wondering if you knew anything about it, because one of them ran into a garage.
No, I don't have any information for each on those, but I can take a look at those and share them with Sharon.
I mean, I'm just curious. All right, I think that is it. Typically, in the past, it would be nice to have some, and again, every captain in the past kind of did it a different way, but it would be nice to have for the quarter, you know, like your calls, you come up and report, but it would be nice to have a document so we could show, or the community, the calls, even a breakdown of, you know, we had catalytic converters that get stolen, like the number of catalytic converters we've had in the past, where it breaks that down, how many get stolen, how many burglaries, how many, just different activity from the past, so the community knows how safe their community is, because I know our even though we don't like any, we're very, very low in Rossmoor in terms of criminal activity. So it would be nice to have a document like that, and I know staff can show you in the past what the past captains have brought us. It would be nice to have that. But with that, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Pierce.
Thank you.
Moving on to item B, additions to the agenda. Tarquin? You'll need the mic, Tarquin.
Thank you, President Searles. My understanding is that the board wishes to meet in closed session under the following matter, and I'll read in the procedure, and then the board can take action. So the issues have arisen after the posting of the agenda, the regular agenda, related to personnel matters which were not known to the posting of the agenda, and which cannot be discussed in open session, and for which immediate action needs to be taken. In order for the board to meet in closed session, there needs to be a vote of 4/5 of the vote, 4/5 of the board, that is at least 4 members voting in favor of holding a closed session. The closed session would be 1, appointment, employment, or evaluation or performance of public employee per Government Code Section 54957, subsection B, subsection 1. The title is General Manager. The second item would be conference with labor negotiator pursuant to subdivision A of section 54957.6, the California Government Code. The agency designated representative is Nathan Searles, board president. The named employee organization is all unrepresented employees.
And Tarquin, I guess in plain language, this would be a closed session to discuss item G4, is that correct?
It would be a closed session item. It would be a closed session for items that relate to G4. Correct.
Okay, thank you. And is now the time in which we would vote to add that to the agenda?
Correct, and you decide where on the agenda you want to place it,
Okay.
if there is a vote.
So I would move that the board approve a closed session in regards to the potential issues related to the general manager hiring as described by council. Is there a second?
I have a question.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so you're making the motion, but so Tarquin, this is rare that we do this, so Tarquin's just reading something to add a closed session. What prompted having the closed session?
I think I will speak in candor about it. I believe there's questions about how item G4 became on the agenda and the background between the negotiations between the board and the general manager. And to clarify those, I believe a closed session would make more sense. I'm comfortable to describe in public, but I think, as the board likes to meet to discuss candidly in closed session, we could do that.
Okay. So is it your request to go into, I mean, I just want to get an idea of, because
Yes, I
Okay.
think you and
Okay.
we would like to talk more about it. And
Okay.
pursuant to the Brown Act, we couldn't talk about it
Okay.
with more than
All right.
one of us at a time. It's just, I think we could all have a better understanding of what's going on if we have a closed session,
Okay.
because of its content being related to an employment matter.
Yeah, if I may add, directors, one of the factual issues important under the Brown Act is that the general manager's agreement expires today or tomorrow. So the 18th, thank you, Sharon, or the 18th. So that is another reason that action needs to be taken immediately.
Director Remne.
It sounds like we're looking at a procedural question, so does that preclude taking any action on G4 if we do this?
No, this is just an item that would be discussed. It's related to G4. We're just discussing the procedures of it, but it does not preclude the board from taking action on G4. G4 is on the agenda and action needs to be taken on it.
Any other questions?
I'm just following along too here. So we're not going to replace G4. This would be before we talk G4, then we come back and then we have more facts or more details, and then we go to G4?
Correct. This would be a discussion that the board would have prior to discussing G4. So we'll be reorganizing the agenda to have the closed session item appear at some point where the board wants it prior to discussing G4.
But is it, I guess it's a point of view versus a cold yes or no, but in the spirit of transparency, since we're going to be talking about G4, why do we need an extra closed session? I don't understand the necessity.
You know, the necessity is for the board to decide, but one issue that will arise if it's discussed in closed session, the personnel matters that be discussed in closed session that cannot be discussed in open session because they relate to personnel negotiation and personnel issues that cannot be discussed in open session.
So I just want to make a comment that the fact that G4 is on our agenda and went out to the public. And again, I want to make another statement that I was confused about G4, and I communicated that to you, which is what you're referring to in terms of our communication. I was just confused about the details in G4, and we can talk about it here because it's already out. I'm confused going back. I mean, so we're going to go discuss behind closed doors and then come out and hopefully discuss G4, again, finalize the contract, because this is the GM contract, correct?
Yes, and I think there's a question procedurally about what the board's actions were in closed session and how they relate to G4. And that is what I am expressing. I think the intent of having a closed session is to be able to have that discussion as a board prior to G4. I don't want it to come flat-footed to the board as to what we discussed before and how G4 exists today.
Who prepared G4?
The general manager prepared the agenda item.
I would say it was a collaboration between our attorney and myself.
Yeah, for clarification. It wasn't, the board presented, and that's why I wish to have a closed session so we can describe and discuss the foundation of where G4 came from, and then we can discuss as a board how to respond.
I guess I'm questioning, in my mind, and it's probably because you know where the issues are on it, but a procedural issue isn't necessarily a personnel matter. And there has been quite a bit of discussion about being transparent and open with our community. And if it's a procedural issue and it's a set aside separate from negotiations, I'm questioning why we can't just lay out the conversation of what's happening, because it's not necessarily relative to the agreement that she's making as much as how we got to this point. Or am I missing something?
That's where I'm coming from.
Right.
If I may comment, please. So under the Brown Act, the discussions on appointment, employment, or evaluation of performance of a public employee, such as a general manager or high-level executive, are, especially the evaluation format, are considered confidential, right? So these are items that the board can, under the Brown Act, properly discuss in closed session. Typically, evaluations of performance are never discussed in open session. Those are solely discussed in closed session, either among the board or with the board and the agency executive.
But Tarquin, this is about a contract. Isn't G4 discussing a contract going from interim to full-time, and the just the details of that contract? This isn't about performance. We're not doing a performance evaluation.
The board has the option, if they go into closed session, to discuss all those items under closed session as they relate to the general manager. In open session, all that would be discussed, can really be discussed, is the nature of the employment agreement, decision to or not continue the employment agreement, or the format of that employment agreement. But the actual discussion about the general manager's performance or evaluation would not take place in open session.
Okay, but
So
Tarquin,
they're related items, but they're not identical.
Tarquin, there's 5 points before. So there's the interim general manager's contract in G4,
Right.
and then there's 5 pieces of discussion. So why are those on our open agenda? Why weren't they put in closed session before the agenda was taken out?
I'm not in charge of the agenda. I wasn't asked to draft a closed session agenda.
Okay.
This need arose after
But-
the agenda was posted.
But I'm listening to what you're saying, so the 5 items of discussion, those 5 points on G4, which talks about a 5 years, which talks about accrual of vacation, all that stuff, isn't that supposed to be negotiated and talked about behind closed doors? Or no?
They can be, let me, if I can simplify this. So typically, there is a agreement that is placed on the open session of the board, right? That's typically how it's done. Anytime there's an agreement, the agreement is placed on the board. Because we didn't have a final agreement that was agreed to by 3 members of the board or more, so what was placed on the board was a description of, placed on the agenda, was a description of the agreement. That is, it's substantially the same form as the interim agreement, except for those 5 changes. So that's a general description, and then the action would be to, if approved, it would be to direct the general counsel and the board president to finalize the agreement.
So
for signature.
Tarquin, sorry to interrupt, but Tarquin, that's not how we typically do this. We
I
typically have a
understand that.
contract that we bring to the board, and we say yea or nay to the contract. Prior to the board meeting, everything's already discussed and agreed upon.
Director DeMarco, this is why I'm asking for the closed session, so we can discuss
Okay.
the negotiation.
So if you
phase.
want to go into closed session, President Searles, we should remove G4 out of the agenda. Because if not, then we should just talk about it, what we want in the contract. So we either, I mean, it's in, it just seems like we just don't, I mean, I don't mind talking about the contract. I'm talking about a contract of our employee. I mean, certainly there, I have some questions about it, but it's, you understand this is, it's not the way we typically do it. Usually we have a document in, that's what was strange about G4. We don't have a finished document, but it's in our agenda right now. So it's like, if we don't have a finished document, then how can we approve the finished document? Because we got to go to closed session, and we don't know what we're going to discuss in closed session, and then we're supposed to write it right tonight at G4 when we get to G4?
And again, I'm trying to provide the closed session to provide the background as to how G4 came to the board tonight. I'm not looking to change G4, and it's on the agenda. It's on its own, it's going to be discussed. It wouldn't change. If this were a written contract, we'd still have it on the agenda, and we'd still be discussing it as we would tonight. I'm just trying to have a closed session so that I can provide the background to the board as to how this came about without, you know, in the way of getting in public, what do you want to call it, negotiation of the contract.
May I make another procedural suggestion? So an agency executive contract must be approved at a regular or adjourned regular meeting of the board. Can't be done in a special meeting. So an option, if the board wishes to do so, the board could not hear agenda item 4G and at the close of this meeting, adjourn this meeting to a later date, early next week, so we're still within the general manager's contract, and then vote on that item and go into closed session and provide a notice special closed session immediately before that item if the board prefers to do so.
Okay, I'll let the board think about that for a moment. Well, Director Remne, your question?
Yeah, the question I have is I asked a brief question about it. Do we have a second on a motion? Because we've kind of stepped over that.
No, there's no second yet.
Okay, because I don't know why we're discussing if we're having one or not, if we're asking if we're having one.
Okay, if there's no second, there will be no second.
I just, you know, if we must have one, okay, but again, Counselor's given us advice that what can we do in G4? We have a contract with these, we can, you know, write out and change the contract tonight, right, on G4?
Well, we're not going to physically write the contract, but if, for example, if you decided that you wanted to approve the agreement on those terms or change terms, you could certainly do that and then direct my office and the board president to execute an agreement consistent with what you've directed. The other alternative is to simply continue this item, to adjourn the regular meeting to a future date, and bring the item back on that date and have a closed session or not have a closed session. But ideally, typically, we would have a written agreement that would be placed in front of the public. That's the typical way to do it.
So, I would, so as, I can state this right now, okay, and I'd like to, I'd like the board to, you know, to give their thoughts. As it is written in G4, I'm not going to vote yes for the new contract. So I'm telling you guys, so there is major problems I have with the contract, okay? So, and I don't believe it's what we agreed upon last month, okay? So if there is 3 that agree with me, then I would say let's go to closed session and hash it out. But if the majority of the board is okay with what is in G4 with, I guess, some minor tweaks, like the length of time or whatever, which we already talked about, but which is different, then it's mute to have a closed session.
And Tarquin, for clarification, the 5 terms, are those negotiable tonight, or those are material and they can't be changed?
Anything, well, negotiation requires a discussion between the parties, right, which would be the board and the general manager. But the board could choose to say, we want it to be 10 years, we want it to be 1 year, we want it to be evergreen. Those are certainly permissible prior to making a vote on the actual contract, the form of the contract itself.
Okay, thank you, Tarquin. Director Rimnay.
It feels like we're jumping ahead and discussing G4 without discussing G4, and I think the question I have still is the decision whether or not to have a closed session that we're making conditional on a motion not to do this. And I think my position is our interim general manager put the agenda together, so it might be a false assumption that she's comfortable being able to work on this issue in public, which I like our community following our thought processes. And I've always wanted open systems. And as a matter of fact, the last time it came up with our general manager, there was a motion to start talking about what went on behind closed doors. And so I would support following the agenda the way it is, and if we run into a problem, adapt and adjust.
I'll just take this moment to ask the general manager if she has any input as to whether this would be preferable in a closed session or open session. I apologize for putting you on the spot. I was attempting to avoid that.
No, thank you. I appreciate that, President Searles. I completely understand that with G4 being on a public item, that there'll be a public discussion, and I'm prepared for there to be a public discussion.
Okay, with that, I'll withdraw my motion, and we'll move forward.
I'd like to make a motion, though, that we are able to discuss the contract from last month, the discussion we had in closed session about this contract from last month. Okay?
May I make a procedural suggestion? That would be appropriate to happen when the item appears.
Oh, okay.
And then you make that motion.
Thank you, Tarquin.
Thank you.
Any other additions to the agenda? Thank you. Moving on to public forum. I have one card. I believe there might be a couple more coming. Maureen, if you'd like to come forward.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Maureen Waters. First of all, I want to thank the board for the addition of the shade canopies, the drink holders, the trash cans to the pickleball courts over at Rossmoor Park. And I'm not a tennis player, so if you've done that to the tennis courts as well, I'm sure the tennis players thank you as well. So thank you for coming together and doing something positive. Also, I have a question about the house fire on Foster. That happened 9 months ago, and nothing has gone on with that house. And you still, at certain times of the day, or the wind or whatever, can walk by there and smell the fire. Obviously, it's probably an insurance issue, but I don't know if there's a, quote, safety issue. Yes, there's a sign that says, "Do not trespass," but I'm afraid it's just a matter of time before the hoodlums, if they get, I don't know, I better. Anyhow, I'm just afraid that somebody might get in there and get hurt. And the smell as well. Can't be good. And then concerned about the e-bikes. I was one of the ones that took the survey, and like we spoke to the sheriff earlier, you guys did, the enforcement, I know they're not going to be able to enforcement because they've got other things to enforce. Now, is it going to give the staff that work in the parks more power because it says on the sign, no e-bikes. But is the staff really going to say something to those kids? If they're really going to say something and they're going to confront, because when I'm in the parks and I see the e-bikers and I see the staff, nothing is done now. And if that's because it's not, quote, against it, then I'm for getting rid of the e-bikes. But otherwise, if we're just going to put it up there and hope that they're going to read it and follow the rules, think again. And then lastly, regarding the general manager.
Maureen, if you want to wait until G4 comes up later, you can, or you can address it now if you'd like, if you need to head out. So it's up to you.
How long is it going to be until you get to G4?
I can't tell you, you know that.
I'm just going to say
I
it
don't
now.
know. Yeah, go
because-
ahead, please do.
Because,
Yeah, of course.
let's see. If there were no other candidates interviewed in the last 6 months, then she was obviously pegged as general manager from day one. If there were other candidates interviewed because there was going to be a new search, I'd like to know how many other candidates were interviewed. And I don't know if you probably can't share that, but if there were. And then okay. And then before the decision was made to hire her full term, or before you guys adapted this new contract, did the RCSD board talk to the office staff, Omero and his staff, just to make sure that she's a good fit for not only the residents, the board, but also the staff that we've had working for Rossmoor, most of them for 10 plus years. And I also think a 5-year contract is too long of a contract to give to her. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. The other two cards I've received are in regards to G4, so we'll wait on those. You want to go ahead? All right. Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like we've already been talking about it, so I'm going
Yeah.
to go ahead and start. Jody Robanis, and I am not representing the RHA, although I am a board member of the RHA. And I did want to speak about the interim district general manager, Sharon Landers, and I want to just give you a different perspective. You all have seen me come up here and talking about bikers and bicyclists, not bikers, e-bikes, I know, but I just want to share with you a very positive experience that I had with her about really reaching out to the community and try to get a different perspective of what's going on in the community. And I just want to share this with you. Not only is she a biker, but also in her leadership, she's not quick to make decisions. She searches to find different perspectives on items. And one was actually about e-bikes, realizing that it's a real problem, that it's not something that's going to go away, and there's some things that are appropriate and inappropriate, but moving forward in a direction with a growing community with growing needs. And that was just really positive to me about not already having an opinion about it and being open. And for me, the few dealings that I've had with Sharon have been, she really brings a new insight of the entire community, not just the older people who don't like the parks, not just the kids, but she really seems to have a well-rounded vision of the community. And I've interfaced with her on many different events and just seeing how she interacts. And she's someone that I want leading Rossmoor in this role, because I think that she's forward-thinking and she's quick on her feet, and she really wants to engage with the community and find out what's going on. So good luck with G4. It sounds like there's a lot going on that we don't know about. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. All right. All right, welcome. Yes. Welcome, Konya.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Konya Vivanti. Again, talking about G4. Couple of questions that I have, and I don't expect answers, but I just want to make the statements. One, did the board do a search for other candidates during the 6-month period, or we just did nothing? Was the Rossmoor board made aware of this agenda item prior to it being posted to the public? Was a performance evaluation conducted of the interim GM? So it seems like the interim GM and the board attorney prepared the agenda item on her behalf, and there was no board input. And then who decided on a 5-year term? And let's see, what has the interim GM brought to our community? Because I've not really seen any examples of what she's done. Also, the city manager of Villa Park, which has a similar population to Rossmoor, is currently being paid $127,000 a year. And yet, this agenda on G4 is proposing paying our GM here $144,000 plus benefits. And our GM for Rossmoor has less responsibility than a city manager does at a city, which has multiple departments and more staff and a larger budget. And so I am not in favor of a 5-year budget. If the board chooses to move forward with this contract, I do not recommend and hope that a 5-year contract is not done, but maybe a year contract would be more palatable. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item D, reports to the board. There are none. Moving on to item E, consent
President's
calendar.
rules. Would you mind if I
Oh, yes, I
read my
apologize.
email?
We do have an email to be read. Sorry.
I have an email here from Catherine Atkins. She wanted included regarding the e-bikes. She says, I called your offices and the Orange County Sheriff's Department over the summer when I saw boys on e-bikes wearing helmets, which was nice, speeding up and down the grass moguls at our dear Rossmoor Park. I was worried for families with small children especially, but also for their leashed dogs and anyone else who might get in their way. Fortunately, I have seen no accidents yet, but I am unhappy that the grass is being torn up and the park otherwise disrespected by these kids. We are second-generation Rossmoor residents. My husband's parents moved in early 1959. We bought their home in 1997 and raised our children here. The park was safe then. I'm not sure if signs will help, but hopefully stiffer penalties for kids on e-bikes in the park would help. Please feel free to include this in the record for when the RCSD discusses the problem at the November 13th meeting. We hope something will be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. I apologize for overlooking that. And now moving on to, again, no additional items for D, reports to the board. E, consent calendar. Consent items are expected to be routine and non-controversial, to be acted upon by the board of directors at one time. If any board member requests that an item be removed from the consent calendar, it shall be removed by the president so that it may be acted upon separately. Does any director wish to have an item pulled from the consent calendar?
I move to accept the consent calendar.
Is there a second to accept the consent calendar?
So second.
All right. All those in favor of the consent calendar as is, say aye.
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 All right. Any nays? Any abstentions? Hearing none, thank you all. Moving on to item F, public hearing. There are none. Moving on to the regular calendar G1, report from the audit committee regarding the fiscal year 2024-2025 audit. Ms. Landers, would you like to introduce, please?
Thank you, yes. If you don't mind, let me start with an introduction of Brad Williber, who's here in the audience, and who is the lead person who handled the audit. And then, of course, you know Josh Byram, who's here as well, who's our financial advisor, who provided a great deal of assistance with the audit. So Brad, before you speak, I want to give a brief introduction, and then the committee members may want to add, and then you're welcome to make some remarks. So I want to start out by indicating that our audit committee is comprised of Directors DeMarco and Director Shade. They met on August 21st with our auditor, who is with Rogers, Anderson, Melody, and Scott, also referred to as Rams, our accountant Josh Byram, and myself, and reviewed the draft audit for fiscal year 2024-25 with the audit committee. The following information was provided to the committee and discussed, and the following information are a number of highlights that are listed here, which I think Brad may go through, but I did want to, before I turn it over to him, indicate that the district did earn a clean and unmodified report with no material significant weaknesses being identified. So that's key. So Brad, I'm going to turn over to you to make some of the highlights for the full board.
Thank you, Sharon. Good evening, members of the board. Like Sharon said, my name is Brad Williber. I'm the engagement partner responsible for your audit of fiscal year ended June 30, 2025. And we did meet with the audit committee, and that was about an hour-long meeting where we went in detail throughout the entire report and gave the results of the audit. And it was just going to make sure you can hear me. In the audit report, you'll see that our opinion, the independent auditor's opinion, is an unmodified report, and that is the highest level of assurance that we can provide over the financial statements. It's saying that the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects. And we did not have any findings to report to the audit committee or to you as a board, which is great. We've received full cooperation from staff, from Sharon and her team, and Josh as well, to move through the audit. Everything progressed on schedule, on time, and was no issue getting through the audit. As far as the results of the audit, you see that in the report there, and as we mentioned, we did go through there quite detailed with Director Shade and DeMarco. And if you have any questions about any particular item that you'd like addressed in this forum, I'd be happy to answer those.
Does the committee have anything to add?
Well, we did, we had a good audit, as Brad has mentioned. Well, let's see, I forgot to bring my audit with the notes. So the things are looking good in the RCSD and Rossmoor's financials. Revenues are increasing. As you know, the first part of this audit, page 4, these financial highlights, and again, this is what we added a few years ago that preempts the audit, and kind of it's like the briefing, the cliff notes to it, and just by reading the bullet points, it's we're in a very good financial state. So there's not much more that I can add, unless Director Shade wants to add anything.
I'm going to ditto what Tony has said. I completely agree. I think everything's going great. This was a delight to see everything in such order, and most appreciative to both you and Josh on everything you guys did and presented for us, and appreciate everything that you do. Thank you. It was a great meeting.
Director Rimney, questions?
Thank you, administration and district for the wonderful report and everything that's there. This is more of a question in terms of helping me get a little bit more educated as to what I'm doing. Note 4 in capital assets. I know how those affect business and what they do. What should I be looking at this capital assets, and what does it tell me about our district and the capital assets that are here? That's page 24.
That's a great question, and I'm happy to answer that. So Almost all governments use infrastructure in some way to provide benefits to their constituents. So in the financial reports here, there are two sets of measurements used for two different financial statements. One will report capital assets, one does not. One's more like budgetary resource focused, and then capital assets, like you mentioned, in a business, it's recorded at cost. So these are basically the historical costs that the district has paid for various infrastructure, including land, buildings, computer equipment, vehicles, and then those are depreciated as an accounting term for basically written off to expense over their estimated useful life. And that will vary depending on the asset. It could be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, depending on what that is. So what you could use this for is, you know that you are required to maintain certain infrastructure to provide benefits, like the parks, for example, this building, the community center, but all infrastructure is wearing down over time, whether it be a parking lot or a park or a building, the roof, etc. And as infrastructure ages, it requires your decision and input into maintaining those items. This report here is not going to tell you exactly how things are going to wear down, right? We make an estimate for accounting purposes of how long the roof will last or the AC unit, but in reality, it could last much longer, could be less. But this could be used as a guide to see, as your infrastructure ages and the value goes down, or the accumulated depreciation is coming up, basically, you know, it's getting older and older, that will give you a guide as to what you might expect to need to replace. Now, this won't tell you what it's going to cost to repair the roof, because we're reporting it at the historical cost that the roof is depreciating over time. And the cost of roofs could go up, could go down. Usually everything goes up, but it could give you an idea. So you may hear people talk about funding depreciation. Really what they're saying is set aside some of your reserves to do capital replacement, repairs, additions of that nature. And that does play into your reserve policy, which we discussed in our committee meeting to see, like, well, what is Rossmoor's reserves? What if something happened and the roof needed to be replaced tomorrow? Do we have the funds to do that, or do we need to look for ways to borrow money in order to do that if there's an urgency to it? And although this wasn't your question, but this was discussed quite a bit in the meeting, is what does the reserves look like, and what should the reserves be? Well, one measurement is to look at what your annual budgeted expenses are, and that would be about $2.2 million is what your financial statements show. And if you take a look at what the ending available resources are, they're about that. So it was 2.1 million. So it's approximately a year's worth of expenses that you have in reserve. You'll hear different guidelines, 3 months, 6 months, just like your savings account. How much should you put aside for a rainy day? So what that threshold is a lot dependent on you and your infrastructure here and how much resources you need. There's no one answer for all governments, but just so that you know, if you were to not receive any revenue, you have approximately a year to before you run out of money, paying all your budgeted expenses. That wouldn't happen, but that just gives you some framework to know about how much resources you have. So as you think about, do I put in an addition to a resurfaced parking lot, for example, at $250,000, well, that's going to use up about a quarter of your reserve balance.
So given that, and this is the snapshot of really what we're looking at in our assets, and we have a year's worth of operating expenses, do we have any provisions for non-rainy day, but these things are wearing out, who knows when? Have we made those plans in our finances?
So you have access, as a board, you have access to all the resources of the district through your budget process and through working with staff, and you can decide if you want to earmark things for a particular purpose. Sometimes boards will do this, they'll commit funds because projects could take a lot more resources than you have in 1 year, and you may not all be seated together for 10 years if you're building up to something major. So you can take a commitment to set aside money, and then that will kind of help to see that it outlives, say, the time that you're sitting there, and it's really set aside for purpose. Of course, the board at the time could take an action to rescind that, but at least it shows direction of what previous boards have decided what they want to do for setting aside money for a specific purpose.
Okay, thank you. That probably segues into the next questions, are more in Josh's domain because it's actually budgeting. But I think what I heard you say is we could put restricted reserves there, but we're not seeing them now.
You could.
Okay.
You could. There's a different levels in accounting terminology that we use for like assigned or committed. It depends on whether you need to take an action as a board or you're just designated management to say set aside money for a particular purpose. Usually those have to do with kind of terms like in how important it is. Like if it's a small amount of money, it's, okay, let staff handle it. If it's a larger, bigger project, the board may want to, have more control over that, and it's called a commitment.
Okay, thank you.
Director Maynard, any questions?
No. Great seeing you, Brad.
Good to see you too.
Always great to hear an unmodified report.
Brad, this probably combines with Josh's information as well, but I know we had an investment committee meeting. What does the auditor have a impression as to what portion of our reserve should be held in like a cash style investment versus a longer term investment?
Yeah, that's a great question. That could definitely be handled, in your investment policy and the work that Josh and staff would be doing. And really that, I think to be good stewards of the resources that the districts have, you want to put as much as possible into some interest-bearing account, and then that amount that you keep is really more of a function of what are the cash flow needs of the district. And that will depend at different times of the year because you are very heavily dependent on property tax revenue, which is not even throughout the year. So at various times of the year, you may need more cash in the checking account just to handle the operating needs versus being able to put away some of your excess resources in interest-bearing accounts.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Brad.
Do we need to vote to accept the report at all, or is it just taken?
Correct. Vote to accept the report.
I'm sorry.
Correct. Vote to accept the report.
Okay.
I moved that we accept the 2025 financial audit report.
A second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? With that, thank you all. Moving on to item G2, introduction of ordinance number 2025-01 regarding revision to policy 6011 concerning the rules and regulations for the use of district property, -6011.70 prohibited activities. Ms. Landers, if you could introduce us.
Thank you. This is a topic that's been before you. It started with our Parks and Facilities Committee as far back as their September meeting. There was a recommendation that they brought forward to the October board meeting, which resulted in a very deep conversation. And as a result of that conversation, the item was sent back to the committee for further consideration. The committee met on Monday, so we weren't able to include, since this report had to be posted on Monday, we weren't able to include the recommendation of the committee, but I was asked to provide a brief summary of where the committee ended up, and then our committee is certainly going to be welcome, which is Director DeMarco and Remne, to add their own flavor, and then discussion to continue. So if I'm going to use exact words of our committee members, they were adamantly in favor of prohibiting the operation of e-bikes, which is currently one of the things that you've talked about. They are at the point now where they're adamantly not in favor of including non-conventional scooters. So the recommendation, in other words, would be to take that out of the ordinance and not have traditional scooters included in this prohibition. On the bicycle issue, it was a little bit more difficult, and I think in fairness to them that they probably leaned toward including bicycles in the prohibition of the operation. But it was with a very lengthy discussion about reasons to do that and reasons not to do that, recognizing that this is something that really the board is going to need to weigh in on. So some of the reasons that they leaned toward including bicycles is that it gets caught up in the whole e-bike issue because they're harder to discern. Bicycles with thick tires from a distance look like e-bikes and vice versa. The kids ride around together with those. So it would be easier to enforce if you prohibit bicycles as well as e-bicycles. They also recognize the liability issue, which we talked about at the October meeting briefly, which is that if the district does prohibit the operation of bicycles, any of these things, e-bikes for sure, but it protects us in the event that there's an accident with a biker colliding with a pedestrian, a person, an animal, whatever it might be. We're more protected if we don't have that prohibition. We could be considered liable. Could be. I'm not saying we absolutely would be, but we could be. And that I think on the other side, there was a concern about community perception, about how we are perceived in the community. You know, just like we love being thought about as a tree community, we're very proud of that. We also like to think of ourselves in general as being bicycle friendly. And this goes against that. So we understand that issue, or I'm saying we, but I'm speaking, if you don't mind, for the committee. That issue was really understood, which is why it was such a difficult issue for them. They ultimately leaned toward prohibiting them, but really wanted that to be a discussion, a thorough discussion of the board. And one of the things that we talked about was if they're not prohibited, that one thing that we might ask our bikers is to consider when they get to the park, getting off and walking, because we don't think it's necessarily a big issue, but that would be if there's no prohibition. So with that, I really do want to turn it over to the committee members to see if there were additional color that you want to provide to this discussion.
Director DeMarco, you were so articulate and basically laid it out really clear. Would you mind starting?
Sure. So, first of all, everything that Ms. Landers said, accurate. The committee was, and we deliberated and massaged this for an hour or so, this time and last time. We are completely in favor in prohibiting e-bikes in our parks. One thing that, so from the last meeting on Monday, from the time before, one thing staff did was send out a survey, which was very good and enlightening. And I believe it agrees with what the committee, agrees with, which is there's a problem with e-bikes. We should prohibit the use in our parks. One thing that I noticed, to just jump to the other side about scooters. So, and I probably was told this, we were told this, I had just forgotten, probably. But a motorized scooter is already defined in state statute as a motorized vehicle, so they're already prohibited because we prohibit motorized vehicles. I asked at the committee level, we should still include that prohibition, point it to the state code section, because it's confusing in our section, because it seems like it's not mentioned, so it must, you should, we can do a scooter, an e-scooter. So I'd like to see that in our own ordinance, just a line that says motorized scooters are prohibited per state statute. But going back to the bikes, what we talked about was certainly we're bike friendly here in Rossmoor. What would be the impact of prohibiting the bikes versus not prohibiting? And Ms. Landers brought out if you prohibited them, it decreases potentially liability. It also makes it easier to enforce if we are effective in enforcing it, okay? But certainly, our parks are not, and this is our discussion in the committee, our parks aren't that big. It's not like we're El Dorado Park. So we're just these very tiny parks. Is it a huge impact to get off your bike and walk it into the park? And that was our discussion. We brought to what we're bringing to the board is, we want to discuss this. I would love a 5-0 vote on this, okay? So we want to discuss the board's feeling on bicycles. Well, first, you agree with the recommendation prohibiting e-bikes. Remember, e-scooters are already prohibited. Regular scooters, we're in agreement not to prohibit a regular scooter, a non-battery, motor, anything that's not self-propelled, okay? So we agree not to prohibit those, okay? The only thing we're on the fence about is, should we do bikes, should we not do bikes? So, Marianne, you can continue.
Yeah, I think the reason that we chose to go this direction is because, again, we take it back to the Brown Act. The two of us were able to discuss this, but we didn't have the benefit of our three other colleagues. And there were specific reasons that it got kicked back to the committee, and I don't know why this is echoing.
I think you need to be closer.
Yeah.
Closer, okay. And particularly cognizant of refreshing my memory and out of deference particularly to Director Maynard, I took to heart the things you were saying, one about the scooters, but I'm not quite sure where you stood on the bicycles, and there was merit to the things you were saying. So this is my chance to ask, because as Director DeMarco says, if we come together for the best interest of the whole community, the whole board talking about it is a really good move. So if you wouldn't mind weighing in on where you're at on it, I would really respect and want to hear your opinion.
Before you answer, one thing that I just, because we had a resident bring up enforcement. So we are being told that the only way law enforcement's going to enforce this is if they see it.
Right.
Okay, so that's law enforcement. They can cite if they see it. We're also being told that staff can enforce our ordinance, okay? Right now, they have nothing to enforce. It's not illegal, okay? If you do things unsafe, certainly jumping and the pictures that we had in our report, and I believe they're in here. All the pictures are in our, okay. So the pictures in the agenda is what is going on this last several weeks or months, where big divots, they're jumping, they're tearing up our turf and causing damage. The e-bikes, now, are some of the regular bikes doing it? Possibly, but mainly they're e-bikes. So the enforcement side is an unknown, but we really can't enforce anything right now. They're not prohibited. So it's, unless you're doing something unsafe, but we might be in a better, and I say might, I don't know. Is our staff going to go out there and enforce? I don't know. Are we going to allow them to? Is there a liability? I don't know. Is this the first step into getting to that? Could be. So if we don't do anything and just leave this alone, I think we're worse off. We should try this and see how it goes. So I just wanted to answer the enforcement, that it's not going to be, you know, the law enforcement's going to come stand in here and start writing tickets, unless they see something, okay? It's mainly, staff can say, hey, you can't have an e-bike, can't ride the e-bike here. Are they going to comply? I don't know. So, but is that better than not having it, is the point we deliberated on. And we came to the conclusion, it is better to prohibit the e-bikes. We feel that it's better to prohibit them than not prohibit them, irregardless of the enforcement.
Director Maynard, I think open question to you and your comments first.
I'm in complete agreement to prohibit e-bikes in Rossmoor parks. I also think this is a total different before finishing it, but to take it to the next point, I wish that we had the consistent 25-mile speed limit throughout Rossmoor and task the sheriffs for enforcing speed of the e-bikes, because they're going faster than cars. So that's my stand on e-bikes. I'm also completely in agreement to let kids ride their normal everyday scooter and pedal and have fun on the fun curves here and have fun. I thought I was pretty clear last week that I think prohibiting bicycles is, you know, I guess the term of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I'm not for it at all. I think we are a bike friendly. I see the enforcement part, I kind of get, but I don't, because if a cop did see some bicyclist or someone and he approaches it and then realizes that's not that kind of bike, no harm, no foul. That's what cops do. They're asked to make judgments. If they see an activity or behavior, they act upon it. So the whole thing of it's going to make it easier to enforce, I'm not sure I follow the logic. I'm not sure I agree with the logic. But I do believe that we have certain bike events. I see it with 4th of July. I see it with our Christmas Eve bike parade where they all meet here in the parking lot and they drive around. I see little tiny bikes. I would like to say stop calling them bikers, they're cyclists, or they're just kids on a bike. My little neighbor across the street, love this little boy named Bo, 2 years old, has a little tiny bike. And I think he should ride it in the park. I think he should come in and have fun. So to me, if we are trying for support, I think we move forward with prohibiting what the real issue is, not losing focus. It's e-bikes.
I appreciate that perspective, which is what I was kind of looking at, because when I originally looked at it, I went, okay, enforcement, here it is, and we need to do this. And then I went, okay, my crystal ball says that it will do one thing. Yours says it'll do another. Your position actually goes towards using bikes and supporting what's already in place. So I'm comfortable with leaving them out as you recommend with, because we don't know which way it'll go. We can change it, and it is consistent to say we like bikes. So that's really the reason that we wanted to come to the full board rather than coming with a solid recommendation and asking you to support us, because those viewpoints only come to the table when we can bring them and discuss them. And so I'm perfectly happy leaving it and leaving the bicycles out.
Okay.
Director Shade, any comments or questions?
No, I actually agree completely on the whole leave the bikes alone. I'm good. It can always be changed later down the road if we decide that's still an issue or an ongoing issue, or if it becomes, notable. But otherwise, I agree. Let's take out anything with a motor or motorized type vehicle, and it's out. Leave the bikes alone. We're good. I like being a bike community.
I just want to make sure we emphasize the last comment that Director DeMarco made, which would be a clarification in our ordinance, not a change, but a clarification to note, along with the things that are currently not allowed, that would also include e-scooters and motorized scooters. So it's not changing anything, but it's just asking for a clarification, asking that the ordinance be clarified so that there's no confusion.
And I think the committee, I would have no issue with just sticking to e-bike prohibition at this time. I know we've looked at what enforcement would look like, and let's see how that goes. I also know we've thought about a little bit, maybe a citation officer to do the enforcement, and what that might look like if we were in favor of changing this policy. Then we could look at what enforcement options there are as well. So I would support limiting the change in policy to just e-bikes and clarification about the motorized scooters.
I'm good with that. So, I don't have I brought, Tarquin, I brought the packet from didn't you have an original from last month? We had an edited version of 6011, 71, and 72? And
It's page 113 of the packet,
Oh.
113 out of 196.
okay, let's see.
Do you want my paper copy?
No, I'm almost there.
We like scrolling.
Almost there. 113. Okay, all right. I think at this moment, it would probably be easier just to send this back to Tarquin once I'm thinking we're going to have a motion for e-bikes and have them rewrite this. I think it'll be easier than just dissecting it right now. Because, again, I want to see what he comes up with, what I think the board's going to tell him about, the e-scooters, just to make it prominent in our 6011.71. The 6011.72, where he added scooters and bicycles, it's just, I believe, just going to go back to just skateboards. No personal shall ride a skateboard, because, the e-bikes is going to be included in that, correct? What do you, if we move to add e-bikes, Tarquin, you're going to need to amend 1171 and 1172, correct?
So for the e-bikes themselves, it would, 1171,
Okay.
61172, skateboards, scooters, and bicycles. So it would be no person shall ride and or operate a skateboard, two-wheeled motorized scooter, and or electric bicycle.
Okay.
Is that the intent of the board?
If the board agrees to add language to strengthen or to reiterate the state definition of an e-scooter, could you put that in 1171 as well?
Certainly.
Okay. All right, I guess we can do this then. So, anything else?
Yeah, the question I have is, can we make a motion with the direction of including our desire for prohibition of e-bikes? And I think that's kind of where
Yeah.
we're at. And leave it to Tarquin for cleanup language to reflect that, to move the ordinance forward? Or does that require us to revisit the whole thing? Because it really is just cleanup of procedural from a general counsel viewpoint, right?
Yeah, I just need sort of fairly precise direction of what language we're going to use.
Okay, can I take a stab?
Sure.
I move the recommendation of this board to prohibit e-bikes by ordinance and not prohibit bicycles or human-powered scooters, and clean up the language to include the existing prohibition on motorized scooters that's already reflected in our current ordinance.
Second.
Is that clear? I mean,
I can work with
Okay.
that. So just for purposes of the Brown Act, so there would need to be a motion to introduce ordinance number 2025-01 waive reading of the title of the ordinance with the amendments specified by Director Rende.
Okay, you'll have to help me with the numbers on it, but I move, I've already lost. Acceptance of the ordinance, thank you very much. The ordinance number 2025-01 regarding revision of the policy concerning the rules and regulations for use of district property, 6011.70, prohibited activities, as following the directions as represented by the board to prohibit e-bikes, reinforce the language of prohibiting the existing prohibition on electric scooters and not including human-powered scooters or bicycles.
And you waive reading of the full
And we
ordinance, correct?
waive reading of
The full ordinance.
the full ordinance.
Thank you.
And I'll second that just in case it needs a second.
It does need a second.
But we now want you to say it again, but in Latin.
So does it come back for the final, just to show us the final? Can we
Yeah.
consent item? Oh, so it's going to come back?
That was my assumption,
Okay.
is that this is the first reading.
Correct.
Okay.
He's making some
Okay.
changes, then it comes back and we
Okay.
vote it in December.
Correct. This is
There you
first
go.
reading. This is
Good.
first reading, comes back for second reading.
Yeah.
If you make changes after first reading, it will come back as another first reading.
Okay.
If you don't make changes, it comes back at second reading.
Okay,
And
and
that's
this is a roll
effective
call
30
because of the
days.
policy
Call.
change, correct?
Correct.
Roll call, please.
Roll call, Director Maynard,
Aye.
Director Shade,
Aye.
Director Remney,
Aye.
Director DeMarco,
Aye.
President Searles.
Aye. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And
Great.
thank you to the committee and to the board. Moving on to item G3, review and approve extension and rate increase request from Street Sweeping Corporation of America. Ms. Landers?
Thank you. We have one more year left on this contract, or I should say that when the board authorized it, it granted a certain number of extensions. There's one more year annual extension that's now left. So we're bringing it now. We did not take this to committee, but with the committee's approval, because of the short timing of when this needs to be approved, it requires being approved before January in order for it to continue for the year starting in January. The one thing that I really want to point out is that although the current amount that is charged us is $82,000, and that is the amount that we get reimbursed by the county, the company that provides street sweeping, SCA, has asked for a 3% increase. And when Carolyn and I did a very deep dive into the master agreement with the county, which we provided here, it's extremely confusing. But in the end, what we interpret is that the county did last year approve the increase to $82,000, and in the county supervisors in their document indicated that they're also delegating authority. Not clear to me to whom, but I believe it's to the Department of Public Works, because that's who signed that resolution. So I believe it's Department of Public Works to allow additional increases up to 10%. And this master agreement, by the way, goes through the year 2099. So the 3% increase that's being requested would be consistent with the delegated authority, but we need to confirm all of that. So the way that I worded this recommendation is for you to approve the extension, and that you should, in my view, approve the increase, but contingent upon the county's approval of that increase, so that we're not at risk. If they, for some reason, say no, we just keep paying the 82, and we're not at risk for any additional funds.
I agree with that.
Director DeMarco, any questions?
No, no questions. I agree. That's exactly how we did it last year, and you know, the cost of the 3% COLA, it gets just approved by the So we need to ask them, it needs to kind of agree and then ask the contingent on them saying yes.
Director Emney.
Thank you for your attention to our best effort to remove ambiguities in doing this, and I have no problem with it.
Director Shade.
Same.
Director Maynard.
Makes sense, let's do it.
All right, I have no further items for discussion. Move to approve.
Second.
All right. Let's see.
Move to approve as stated by our general manager?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I second.
All right. I don't think, we don't need a roll call for this one, do we, Tarquin?
No.
All right. All those in favor of approving G3, extension and rate increase request from Street Sweeping Corporation of America with a contingency to make sure the county cooperates in the agreement, say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Thank you all.
Can I add one thing?
Yes.
Ms. Landers, when this all gets approved and everything, I would invite SCA to come out and, I don't know, say hi and tell us how's everything going, make sure we promote it. So, because I know there has been street sweeping issues, and we should invite people that have had issues to come and, seek, I don't know, they come and communicate with us, and, the public can also meet them.
And Director DeMarco, I think we've invited them for next Thursday as
Oh.
well, but
Oh, okay, good,
this will,
good,
we'll follow up on that invite again.
great. Thank you.
All righty, moving on to item G4, discussion and possible action regarding public employment. One position titled interim district general manager. We're actually looking at the general manager position at this time. I believe, Tarquin, if you could just introduce this.
Thank you, President Searles. So this is obviously, taking action on the regular general manager's agreement. So the two items are, one, approve the terms of the employment agreement with Sharon Landers to fill the position of district general manager, pursuant to policy 2000, which is the general manager, duties and responsibilities for a period of 5 years. Direct general counsel, myself, to draft an employment agreement in substantial form as discussed below, and authorize the president of the board of directors to execute the agreement on behalf of the board. The 5 substantive revisions to the agreement as proposed would be, term of the agreement would be 5 years. Number 2, 5 days of administrative leave per year will continue to accrue from the effective date of this agreement, provided that if not used within 12 months of accrual, that accrual leave will be lost, i.e. use it or lose it. Vacation and sick leave accrual will continue at the over 10 years of service rate, which is the existing accrual rate in the interim general manager agreement, but it'll be subject to the applicable annual accrual cap and payout provisions of policies 2020, 2021, and 2040 that apply to all employees. Vacation, administrative, and sick leave accruals from the 6-month interim general manager agreement will be carried forward in the new agreement, but are not subject to any use it or lose it provisions of the new agreement or policy 2020-30 regarding maximum vacation accruals. Finally, the employee shall not be credited with any additional days of vacation or sick leave under the new agreement, and shall only accrue vacation and sick leave pursuant to policies numbers 2020 and 2040, as stated in number 3 above. So if you recall, in the interim general manager agreement, which is attached to this report, the interim general manager was credited with some extra vacation and sick leave at the beginning of her agreement. She would not be credited with those additional days of sick leave. She would just accrue them per policy. In addition, there may be some other items that General Manager Landers wishes to discuss with the board, and I'll let her discuss those.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to move that this board can discuss the details of the contract that we discussed last month at our closed session.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Just if I may comment, so that's a proper motion. It would obviously need a majority vote. The effect of that will be to waive those items discussed in closed session as discussed here by the board, waive the attorney-client privilege, and waive the closed session protections. Just so we're clear, that is what the motion would do.
And
Just a question on
You may ask a question, Director Ramey.
it? Would that be acceptable? Would you have a problem with us doing that?
It's entirely up to the board.
Well, I guess I'm asking in deference. I don't see anything we can't discuss, but it is a personnel matter, and I guess I'm asking if it's proper to ask.
So as long as we're not discussing the employee evaluation
Okay.
itself, we're just discussing the terms of the contract negotiation.
Perfect. Okay.
It's the board's privilege, the board may waive it in the board's discretion.
Good. Okay.
I would just add as a discussion point that I have no issue with it in this instance, but I would strongly discourage taking a previously determined closed session and making the discussion open. There's a candor that comes from the idea that someone is discussing something in closed session, and the fact that there aren't minutes from a closed session, someone might infer that an action was taken in a closed session that wasn't taken, and there's no verifiable way. And so from that, I strongly discourage the idea of any discussions from closed session ever later becoming an open session. If it's to be an open session, it should be an open session to begin with, and not later decided that we will discuss things that were decided in closed session further detail. Again, I believe we can handle that in this specific instance, but I strongly discourage this as a pattern.
So my understanding is this is limited to basically the discussion of the contract.
Correct. The
Perfect.
discussion of the
Okay.
terms of the contract.
Director Shade, any comments or questions about regarding the motion to allow discussion of what was discussed during the closed session at our last meeting?
No, but I would agree with what you just said strongly. I do think it sets a precedence, and we do need to be watchful of what we share and I like to be forthcoming to our community in as much as possible as far as transparency goes. So that being said, I do think we need to, there is a certain candor, as you said, and people won't be as forthcoming. But I do feel like I want to be as forthcoming with our community as possible.
Any discussion, Director Maynard, on this pending motion?
I think it's the right call. I think we know the ground rules is it's not about her evaluation. It's specific about the terms that we thought we were talking about versus the terms that are showing up now. And I think transparency is critical. So.
All right, thank you. With that, I'd go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor of Director DeMarco's, will you just repeat the motion while we're here?
that we are allowed to discuss the terms of the contract that we discussed in closed session last month.
And there is a second from Director Maynard. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Hearing none, thank you. All right, so we have that motion has passed. Director DeMarco, floor is yours.
First of all, I mean, I just want, we did not discuss 5 years. We discussed a much lower term, and I want an explanation as to why it's in here, because it gives a perception that we've okayed 5 years, and we didn't okay 5 years. We talked about, I brought up a 2-year term in closed session, and I read it, and it's 5 years, and now now for me, now it's like I'm taking away 3 years if I agree to the 2, because I brought up the 2 years. I think there should be a term on this, and I want to protect the district, right? And so I'm just wondering how it got to 5.
Okay. And so I'll speak of that. Procedurally, Ms. Landers was offered the 2-year contract that the board agreed to offer her, and her response was that she wanted 5 years. There's been no statement that the board offered her 5 or agreed to 5. That is what I was trying to clarify earlier, just because I think it would have been a situation where you could have had a back and forth and we could have discussed any nuances. But it's fine here today and now. That's what I was trying to get at, that it wasn't that I had approved it or offered it.
And President Searles, I just think we're going about this wrong, okay? That this part of G4 really should be your recommendation to the community and the board. It should not be the general manager that we're discussing. This is her contract that we're discussing, and she's preparing this. So this should have been, you should have looked at this and said, no, okay, it is going to be 2 years, and then we could discuss it with her and either remove it or what. But I'm just, so we've really haven't done it this way in the past. Okay, we have a contract. This is our old contract. So last month we talked about the new contract. It doesn't say anything about life insurance in here. We had a discussion about that. So I think we agreed to remove it, okay? I think we agreed to remove it. Again, we don't have any notes to it, but tell me if if my recollection is wrong, but we agreed to remove that. And again, this should have been a negotiation with our general manager. If on any one of these points she said no, then it would have to go back to negotiations. It shouldn't be here, because what we're doing right now is we're going to negotiate the contract here.
I accept the criticism, and
I get it, and I'm just calling it, I just want it to be right.
I understand, and I'm trying to say I accept the criticism, and what Ms. Landers has provided is her counteroffer, and she's understanding our time constraints and wishing to allow us to discuss in open session, which I applaud her for allowing this, because I don't think any of us wish to have our own compensation ever publicly debated, but she's allowing that now. I take no position on the 5 years. It's purely a term she's offered. And so, I accept it's very unconventional. So is the 6-month term where we weren't able to renew her previously. So we never offered her the 5 years, and I wanted to make that very clear to you. I wish I could have done it earlier, but I wanted you to be able to discuss with anyone else, and I'm frustrated with how the Brown Act works that way, because it did limit me for where I could be with you in our discussions. But I would like a moment if Ms. Landers could discuss this as well, because she's the other party to this negotiation.
Could I make a quick comment on that? I think it would have been nice in hindsight if it would have been clear in this that it was a counteroffer being presented, and I know that the tight time frame has a lot to do with that, and I really appreciate the ability to be able to clarify that issue, because having personal conversations with her this afternoon as to where did this come from, what does it mean, the Brown Act really precluded us from being able to do what we're doing right now. And I think it's a good thing for the community to see that at times there's confusion, and it's not intended for anything other than we're not perfect and we're working towards doing things the right way. And so I think we're on a good track to be able to step through this one bite at a time and see where we can go, because we do have time constraints with this interim position.
And again, I brought this up months ago, that yes, we're going to be left to be in a corner and possibly, potentially making rash decisions because we have a time constraint. And that's where we are right now. It's, Ms. Landers, we can negotiate or talk right now, but yep, we got till the 18th to make a decision. So,
Well, I think we should talk to General Manager about this, because I don't see this as a shot clock with a and she's getting up, packing her desk, leaving, and we never see her go on on the 19th. I doubt that would happen.
Go ahead.
No, I'd like to take this back to the question that President Searles brought you to before I interrupted it, to hear where you were going with that.
Yeah, just Ms. Landers, if you could just discuss the exchange and your position, please.
I would be happy to. Let's go back to October. You all had a closed session. You might recall I was extremely sick, and I had to leave early. I don't know if your plan was to call me into that closed session. What wound up happening was that President Searles, after a period of time had passed because of his own schedule, tried to fill me in on certain elements, and may have also been constrained about not talking about the closed session since I'm not part of it. And so that also added some complications, but tried to give me a little bit of a flavor of some of the items that had come up, not the insurance item, that wasn't discussed by us. But just to go back a little bit, I don't know what all of you remember or know, some of you would, of the history of your agreements with former general managers. But I know at least as far back to Jim Ruth and then Joe Mendoza, who was my immediate predecessor, their contracts were all evergreen. And when I think that Tarquin first spoke to President Searles and I, he let us know that contracts typically for general managers and city managers are evergreen. And so that, to me, was actually the starting point. Now, I think for you, your starting point was a different place. And I'm hearing that. And I'm hearing some of this for the first time also, but I did understand that there was some discussion about there not being an evergreen contract, which is puzzling to me, since your two previous general managers were evergreen. And if you keep in mind that the 6 months was because I asked for the original contract to be 6 months, because I had wanted to work part-time, and you had asked me to work full-time, and my own sense of ethics is, let's just try it out. I'm not going to commit to something longer if I'm not interested, if I don't know. And so I said, I'll do it, but for 6 months so we could try it out. And 6 months has turned out to be, in many, many ways, challenging, but I would say in largely good ways. I feel as if we've done a lot of problem solving. We've moved ahead on some projects, which I'm really appreciative of getting support on. We're moving forward on the Canopy project, for example, which I have some sense might have been kind of stuck for about 6 years. We're going to move forward on the PIP project. One of the residents talked about some of the things that have been going on at Rossmoor that I don't spend a lot of time talking about, but we've been making some small improvements there that the neighbors of the park have been really happy to see. And I'm continuing to work on particularly the pickleball issue with noise. We've been testing certain equipment just to see whether or not it makes a difference. Just to give you an example, I've met a handful of time with the neighbors there to understand their point of view. I've been talking to people on the pickleball courts to understand their point of view. So there's a lot of stuff that I've taken on in 6 months that I'm very excited by. But I also recognize, for me, that 2 years is an extremely short period. And it doesn't give a chance to have a longer perspective in terms of what we can accomplish here. And actually, one of the things that Josh and I intend to come back with sometime soon will be in accordance with our policies, which we haven't been following, a 5-year fiscal plan. And it really just makes sense, if we're going to have a 5-year fiscal plan, to also have my contract to implement be that same period of time. So in trying to figure out, well, if you don't want to do evergreen, what is reasonable, considering that your last two general managers were here 5 or 6 years. That looked to me to be a reasonable period of time. 2 years felt extremely short. I'm not really sure what your thinking was, since I didn't have the benefit of being in the meeting, nor was it shared or able to be shared with me. So I was trying to come up with something that I thought really was reasonable and made sense for the community. So that's that one. You know, my original agreement had a lot of accruals up front, because typically when you walk in, you don't have any accruals, and I wanted to have the opportunity to take time off to spend with my daughter if I needed to. Turned out, little did I realize, she started working for the first time, and they told us, you really shouldn't take any vacation with her in the first 90 days. So I was like, okay, so much for my vacation, which would have been with her. But I've used some of those accruals for various things, including my recent travel. But I do think that administrative leave is pretty standard when you're working all kinds of hours. And despite the fact that I was interested in flexibility, I work really long hours. I'm here late, many, many nights. We've had a ton of committee meetings that have been in the evening. I come here to every event that we have, and I come to other events, so that I'm the face for Rossmoor Community Services District in other community meetings. I was just today at Los Alamitos Chamber Lunch. Yesterday, I joined Rossmoor Women's Club. I don't like to have 2 lunches out in a week, but I did that. I wanted to really be present. I'm going to start going to Seal Beach Chamber meetings, because that's another area that we joined. I go to things for RSDA, I go to things for CJPIA. That takes time out of my day, even though I consider it part of my job, but it takes me away from what I need to do for my job. So very often, I'm here after staff leaves. And I don't mind that, but that's what administrative leave helps you with. President Searles and I talked a little bit about concerns that the board had with potentially having large accruals at the end of a contract. And so what I added for that one, this is number 2, is use or lose, which is also very typical for administrative leave. It's like if you don't use it, you lose it within that 12-month period. So that was how I balanced that one out. The vacation and sick leave accruals and payout and caps are all exactly identical to was in Jim Ruth's contract and Joe Mendoza's contract. And really what I'm doing there is confirming for you that I will accept those policy limitations, because otherwise I might not have. And so number 3 is really telling you that, okay, those are policies that apply to our staff. They apply to Jim and Joe, and I'm fine with them. I will go along with them. So that's what those are. And then any accruals that I have for my 6-month agreement, and where they're fairly minimal, President Searles and I have talked about what those are, but that those should carry forward and not subject to these caps because they're already there. And that the last thing is that I'm not asking for any additional accruals at the front end of the agreement the way I did in the 6-month agreement. So that's conceding to you that all I have going forward now in terms of accruals is what I get under our policies. So I'm really a little puzzled about, to me, what I did here was I gave up a lot of what I might have otherwise asked for. I feel like I'm giving up a lot. I get that that's not what you're feeling, and so that's what the conversation is, and I appreciate that. But I just want you to know that I'm committed to being here if you were interested another 5 years. And I've been enjoying the successes that we've had together, because just for example, your discussion on e-bikes, while it was limited to a prohibition on operation of e-bikes, that really was the main thing that the community was interested in. And the other things were things that we looked at in terms of ease of enforcement and really making our parks safer. But this is where you, as the board, get to make those policy decisions. But we get to move forward now, with Tarquin's help, by the way, of course. And Caroline is a great partner to me, and the rest of my staff are just terrific. But I don't really know what else I could say. I'm going to stop, well, since I've covered really what I think I would have wanted to.
Thank you. And I'll start with Director Maynard if you have any questions for discussions here.
I'm not sure Tony was done. Were you done, Tony?
No? No. So the first thing I want to say is I have nothing against our interim general manager, Sharon Landers, at all. Okay, I want the best contract for the community. We are giving a lot more. Now, Ms. Landers says some of these accruals are exactly like the others, yeah, but they were making a lot less. So, and then 6 months ago, we changed policies in order to hire the general manager. So we've done a lot to, make you happy to get you here, okay? And again, I don't know, I don't agree with your giving up. I think the community's giving. And the next statement I want to say, and I think I've said this, that historically, this tiny community, and again, we run 2 parks, a street sweeping contract, $2 million budget, and we have, 5, 6 full-time, a couple part-times. We've been successful with the last 2 general managers finding a city manager or a CEO who's retired. We don't have to do that, but that's just what we have done. So we certainly don't have the resources to pay a city manager. We do not have the resources to pay a city manager. If you carve up what a city manager does with what our general manager does, and you take what a city manager does for a small city, and you carve up all those things, and again, Ms. Landers, you were city manager of Carson, it's just a small percentage. I know it's a bit, you're busy here, there's a lot of moving parts, but in the the amount of responsibility you have for, let's just say, the city of Carson compared to the Rossmoor Community Services District that just runs parks and some trees and stuff like that is much, much smaller. So my opinion is we are paying a lot for our general manager, okay? It doesn't mean you're not worth it. It's just we are paying a lot of money that we hadn't in the past, okay? So the other thing that I want to say is I don't know, I can kind of, I can try to figure this out, but I don't know what the true cost is of this contract, okay? So I don't know what the cost is for vacation, for sick leave, for administrative. So it's hard. I don't know what the value of this contract is. The base is 140 or 144, and which is the most we've ever paid for a general manager. And then it's all these add-ons. So I guess a question that I have for you is there, again, you're saying you're giving up. You gave up a lot. I don't see that. Maybe I don't see it. You can tell me again what you gave up specifically, but what's in this contract? What your first 6-month contract? What isn't in there that you would like? Is there anything in there that you would like to have?
Question. Is there anything in my 6-month contract?
Yes. So was the 6-month contract, would you have liked to had, anything else in this contract?
You're pointing to...
Your interim contract, because that's what's...
It's really irrelevant. We negotiated that 6-month contract. I don't remember where we started. I do know that, we negotiated it to that language. So, and also I should point out to you, and I spoke to Josh about this, there's a misunderstanding about how to look at accruals. So if you would go to the audit, to G1 in your agenda, what your accruals are, what the compensated absences are, is accrued liability. They're not a cost. They don't become a cost until you pay them out. They're an accrual. And you don't know what the cost is because I could be using them all up. And the way that it works is it's instead of you're paying me when I take vacation. So when I take vacation, you're not paying me. I'm using an accrual, which is why it's not a cost. So I'm a little bit confused about...
Okay, so I'll remove that part of it. Okay, the 401, so we changed our policy to do a 6% match. All of our employees are 3%. Yours is 6.
It's a 457, that's all.
Okay.
That-
I'll say retirement. I'll say retirement. So there's a cost to that, and again, it's an unknown. I don't know if you're going to max the 6%, but you could. Okay, so that cost isn't part of this 144 that we're talking about, right? So we're going to have to wait a year and then see that cost.
I don't understand what you mean by waiting a year to see the cost. It's a cost
What's
that...
it going to, when I say
6%
cost,
of-
what,
It's 6% of my salary.
okay,
So whatever 6% is, it's 4,000 something. I don't remember the exact numbers. And it's paid over the period of the year.
no, I understand that.
So it's not, you're not waiting for anything. It's an actual number. And it's part of what we've included in budgeting.
I understand that, but we've never given that to our general managers.
I realize that.
Okay.
I see.
All right. So I still have again, you currently, we have not, and again, I don't know who to look at. We have not really assessed the life insurance or how much the life insurance liability is going to be for you for the district, right? So that's an unknown. And you want that included in the contract, right?
Yeah, I'm happy to address that because we haven't yet signed up. We've been spending a lot of time investigating, and we actually have a really interesting opportunity right now in terms of pursuing this through our broker. What we're looking at the moment is using my getting insurance covered by the district, I'll come back to that amount, to leverage to be able to offer our full-time employees at their cost insurance, which a number of them have
Life
already...
insurance?
Yeah, and a number of them have already indicated an interest. And so what we're looking at doing is leveraging this so that it would be a benefit for employees. And so the amount that we think it is about $2,500 for me in a year.
Refresh my memory, the medical expense is, what's the yearly rate? What's 20,000?
And just for a reminder, that is cheaper than if the district were buying the insurance for her.
Correct. I don't remember the exact number, Carolyn, Mike, 24,000 or 25? Yeah, but it was several $1,000s less than if the district provided insurance for me.
Okay. And again, we were, if I shift out to the regular employees, we were talking about capping that at like 10,000. So we're doing double for our general manager. Again, it's just, in my opinion, this is not a good contract for our district. So I'm done for now.
Thank you. Director Rimney, I believe you wanted to ask or make a statement.
I'd like to hear...
Come to the mic if you...
I'd like to hear more comments from those that are concerned about it.
Director Maynard.
I actually wanted to hear her comment.
Oh, okay.
Director Shade, any comment, or would you like to?
Hold on.
All right,
Okay.
Director Rimney, the
Okay.
floor is yours.
First of all, the things that you're talking about were things that we offered her. When you brought these concerns up and we took a vote on it, the vote was to proceed with the contract, and I don't remember the insurance issues, but the way it came out should be the way it is, because she didn't change that in this counteroffer. With that being said, I do take exception to the, we've never done these things this way. And particularly, public records and freedom of information is wonderful. The steps that were taken for General Manager Mendoza were a cost-cutting measure at the request of General Manager Ruth and his side consultant to start cutting costs to be able to build restricted reserves because they weren't there. And the move to do that was a really wise one, to be able to cut those costs there, to be able to start building up and planning for the future, which that both of them had requested be done for several years. And with that, the specific purpose was planning needed to happen for the long-term sustainability of the district, and planning for it needed to be done. In regards to, we've never paid more for a general manager, that may or may not be the case, because what showed up in contracts and iteration of contracts are various other benefits. Because I have been told at various times he didn't have health insurance. Well, yes, he did. He didn't have vacation time. Yes, they did. I was told that he never had any other help, and because he did the whole job himself. Yet for years, General Manager Ruth had a consultancy contract with Henry Tabota to do the things that the first line in the contract said we did not have in-house expertise to do. These things came up in 2016, 2017, and they were recommendations that these steps be taken. And I'm a little bit puzzled because these came up and they came before the board, and the board, of which the two of you are part of, voted 5-0 to pursue this direction. So I'm a little bit confused. There may be reasons for it, but what you're saying is the costs weren't there. And I don't think it's fair and accurate to represent.
We're not hiring two people. We're hiring one.
I'm not saying that you are. And what I'm saying is the cost of running the district is being represented in a way of comparing apples and oranges. And with that, I think the intent of being able to produce and move forward in the district needs to be looked at from the benefit to the community and the district to move things forward. That's the first thing. The 5-year contract, I think, is a wise move, because it should be, the other ones have been evergreen. And there's never been an issue, and I don't know why an exception is being made here. But 5 years for a 5-year plan to put us on a course to be able to have the things that we need to have in place for the health of the district are going to take that. We have to have a fiscal plan. We have to have the ability to compete for grants. We have to have the ability to reach out for funding and financing for the things that we have to plan, that we're working on now, that we have no dedicated sources for. That's not a deficit. We're in a healthy place with our district, with our reserves. But that's for today, and we need to have a longer-term vision. And I think that the moves and the steps that we've taken merit supporting the health of our district. And I see those steps being put in place by our general manager. And yes, there was an evaluation, which was a satisfactory evaluation. So that's not a question here. The question is, why are we looking for something else when she has willingly stepped up and we willingly produced an offer for her to come on board? And now we're saying, let's undo it. And I think it's unfair to everybody, particularly our community, to do that.
Thank you. Director Shade, any comment or question?
I'd like to say I appreciate all the deep dive homework and research that you have done in this, Director Remney. I appreciate your insight, and I know that if there's anybody here on the board that does their homework, it is you. There's no question whatsoever. I know every stat that you present to us and things that you bring up to our board. With this in regard, I take your word to heart, and I wholeheartedly agree with what you have said. I think it's a wise decision for our community to move into a direction that we do have a future, and it is with the previous GM managers having the evergreen contracts, which I was unaware of. I mean, again, this is something that has come up, and we all learn things during this processes, but I believe that 5 years would be a legitimate and fair time, well put by our GM on why she chose that, and I agree. I think we need to move forward in that direction.
Director Maynard.
This is going to be awkward, but it's the truth. The 5-year contract, that just needs to go away. It probably should be evergreen. It was brought up the concern of why we put a 2-year term.
Thank you, Michael.
Is the threat of being sued. Meaning if a future board ever wanted to terminate, the concern was brought up of, based on what we thought, is that you would probably sue us. So the question is, in your previous agencies, and when positions were parted, how many times did you sue previous employers?
0.
0 times. Well, thank you. For some reason, there was a concern, and I'm calling it out, is let's put a cap on it, 2 years. My thought on the 2 years, and I'm not the one who proposed this, I'm the one who said, okay, because I understand we're concerned of litigation, is, well, I'm going to take a step back. The reason I don't like a 5-year is I know we need a 5-year plan, but we'll always have an executive leadership, and we'll have a board of directors to execute that plan and constantly bringing those plans forward. I myself, with the 5-year plan, there's going to be a complete different composition of who's on the board. Every 2 years, we have a change. There's been years where we haven't, but still, handcuffing a future board with a leader that they can't get out of, I don't think that's appropriate at all. So to get this forward, it should be evergreen, just a standard at-will employment agreement with the terms. I'm okay with the accruals, with the fact that you are an executive, the executive package, I've never had an issue with. I get that. I do feel that the package is significantly higher than I am comfortable with, though. But I do want to be very clear that this is not about the person, it's about the package and the contract that I don't like. I actually think you are a smart, professional person that brings value. I've enjoyed working with you. I would love to continue to work. I wish there was a way, somehow, that you can actually bring down your costs for us. Because it wasn't our general managers of the past who said, oh my gosh, we got to contain costs. That was me as a president one year, really hounding it down, followed up by other good presidents like Tony, and their years of getting the position that Rossmoor is financially is something that Tony and I have worked on for 12, 13 years. And so there's some equity in the equity we have built that he and I are trying to protect. So right now, 5-year, no way I can support that. Evergreen as a standard at-will employment agreement, that is something I can support. The other thing is just a question is, because of the fear of suit, is it appropriate to put an indemnification clause into this agreement? And if so, is everyone comfortable with that?
I will respond to that question.
Okay.
It is not appropriate to put an indemnification clause
Okay.
in the sense that would prohibit Ms. Landers from waiving her right to bring suit. It would not be appropriate to do that.
Okay. But the fact is, this should be a standard at-will employment, not 5 years. And again, I think the package at the base salary of 144 is a little rich for what our small community needs. But again, love the executive and the person that's in front of us right now.
Okay. I've been very involved with working with Ms. Landers, and I can't say enough about the time she spends trying to solve the problems. She's, I like hearing a resident talk about the upgrades at the, pickleball facility for, just making it more fun and enjoyable. There is the general manager being a conduit of the board to the residents has been really, really seamless in that sense. And I think that is, why, she's willing to seek the position further and why we're willing to offer her the position further. I know it was raised earlier about Villa Park as a comparison. And just for comparison, Villa Park as a city is a CalPERS participant, and they're offering more than 7% in their pension. So that's just right off the top, 7% of a employee's compensation the community has to pay into their retirement. It's not a match. It's not an optional for the resident. It's the community, the city of Villa Park is paying 7% into the pension, whether the employee is doing a match or not. And so I think 6% is great. As I stated when we did the 3% in the 457 plan for the other employees, I think as a board and as a community, we want to encourage our employees, our staff, the leadership to invest in their retirement. When they invest in their retirement, they're making good decisions. It also leads to greater reliance on their fiduciary skills and their fiduciary responsibilities. I work, unfortunately, in an area where financial vulnerability leads to some difficult situations and difficult choices. If our employees are putting their money properly into retirement, it reduces the chances they're going to do some inappropriate action with our resources. And so for that, I think we should always do our best to encourage them to have fiscal planning. With that, I would be amenable to either a 5-year or the evergreen contract. I understand Ms. Landers' reason for a 5-year plan, and I also understand that evergreen is what we've always had, and I think that would be workable here as well. I know Director Renee has a question next, and then I'll move down to you, Director DeMarco.
First of all, I want to clarify that I am not attacking what you've done in a previous board in terms of savings and building. It was a directive at the time that needed to be done, and you've done an excellent job at that. And we have the reserves, we do, because of many of those cost-cutting measures. So I'm not criticizing that in the least.
So let me just clarify that it was me that brought up the 2-year because, and if the facts online are incorrect, then I stand corrected. But I certainly read that I was concerned because I'm all about protecting where I live in this district, been on the board for over 10 years. So I thought it prudent to have a limit to where we've never had one before, but I never had that concern before. So I had a concern. That's why I pitched it to the board. That's why I wish, just speaking candidly, I'd wish our president just would have pulled it. So we wouldn't even have to talk about it, okay? Because we've never had you can stay here as you're at the pleasure of the board. We can relieve you of your duties with a majority. So as long as you understand that, okay, we're good.
I just want you to know that I'm thankful to have the opportunity to answer that question.
Okay.
Because that is an underlying question, and I've not been given the opportunity. It came up at the very first meeting when my contract was being approved, and nobody asked me to speak to it. And so, I understand how you're left with that information. I've actually talked to President Searles about it. It's something that's been weighing on me because it's like something that's very against my character, And so having no opportunity to talk about it, I even thought about whether to raise it on my own. So I really appreciate your asking, and I really appreciate your acknowledging that information that you might have had might not have been accurate. So thank you.
Okay, well, thanks for clarifying that. And again, I'm going to say again, I am analyzing this contract like I've done for the past 10 years on our general manager contracts. So it is not about the effectiveness, because I don't really know. I've seen you, we've been in the committees. I don't have a complaint about what you're doing. You're very able. You're a former city manager, okay? So I don't have a problem with you individually. It's this contract for our budget, in my opinion, it is just a bit high for what I'm comfortable with all the add-ons, with us having to change our policies at the beginning rather than at the end. And, I'm going to bring up, because I don't know how my board is going to, because in the, what's going to happen at the end of your fiscal or end of the year, because usually at a performance review, we talk about bonuses. So I'm also thinking about, well, there's going to be a bonus cost on top of this, okay? Because we've done that in the past. So those are the things that are going through my mind, is the add-ons that I believe are more than what we've done in the past. I might be wrong, but we've never really done we do a salary in our budget, and that's just the salary. It's not what is the cost. It's all hidden in our line items in our budget, okay? We should do one that is more a breakdown of benefits and, other, and to where you can see what the cost is for all of our employees, certainly for our general manager. So you guys can do what you want. You guys know what the reason why I brought up the 2 years, okay? So if there's not a concern, I don't see why you would even keep that in, because we've never had it. But, if it's a 5-year plan and, the general manager is at will, okay? So there really doesn't need to be a cutoff. I brought it in for what I just said, and you guys know that. That's what I brought up. You guys, whatever. I thought we agreed on that. So I'm still uncomfortable with the amount of pay, because I really don't know. It's not going to be it is never going to be less. And I knew that 6 months ago. Okay? Why are we giving the general manager so much money to start? Okay? And then now we are 3 days before it renews, and it's like what are we going to do? So it just puts us in a bad position.
Director Remne.
I just asked President Searles if it would be appropriate to make a motion at this point to move things forward. And I would like to move acceptance of her counter, subject to the change of an evergreen contract, to be able to put a discussion forward and get to those things, because a lot of these things we're bringing up are things that we already discussed and voted on early on, and they can be discussed in the discussion portion after we have a motion on the floor.
A second.
Ms. Landers, would you be agreeable to Evergreen if the board were to take that vote? I mean, I don't want to waste any time here.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, I would be, of course.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. Is a discussion to move forward with the terms, changing the 5-year to an evergreen contract. Any further discussion?
Yeah, just to clarify, so the 5, so now it's 2, 3, 4, 5, and everything in her prior contract. That 2 through 5 doesn't amend. So it's everything in the contract.
It amends the terms that would be in conflict. So if there was previously a vacation
Okay, so
term.
then, I got another question. So if this passes, Tarquin and general manager are going to negotiate? Are you going to be involved in that negotiation?
There's no negotiation. This is the terms as Go ahead, Tarquin. I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, no, thank you. You're correct, President Searles. There's no negotiation. Once the board decides, I would draft the form of the agreement consistent with the board direction. Nathan will be authorized to sign it. I'll be authorized to draft it. We present it to Ms. Landers for signature. There's no negotiation. I'm not being asked for authorization to negotiate. I'm not going to negotiate. I'm just implementing the will of the board.
Okay, so, number one, so there's a motion, so is there a second?
There is a second.
Okay,
yes.
okay. So, I just want, because this is, I want the community to know. So I'd just like to go over this, the terms, because it's not simple. It's complex based on past. So it's 144,200 salary. Okay, it's 20,000 a year in medical. It's again, we talked about this, but I don't know what it says in the contract. It is what's the COLA for the contract? Because we said something last month. I believe we said whatever we agree to when we go over COLAs. I believe in our contract it says 3%, or it says something. I don't know. But Tarquin, can you find it? So there's a COLA. Is there a COLA, an automatic COLA?
I believe there's a cost of living adjustment.
Okay, automatic. So our other employees have to wait for us.
But it's, as Ms. Leonard pointed out, it's consistent with what's given to staff.
Okay, so if staff is getting zero, what,
That's page 186.
what number is
It's
that?
L.
L.
It's 4L.
Okay. So same as the rest of our employees,
Yes.
okay? And then it's, how many administrative days? 5? Okay.
But again, that's not a cost, that's a include liability. I know you want it totally, but
Well, it is, really, Ms. Landers, it is a cost. If you take a day off, someone's got to cover.
we all take days off. And when you say somebody has to cover, we don't bring in a person that then gets paid.
Okay.
That is in lieu of my salary. So
Okay.
I don't get extra money. I just get a paid day.
Okay.
Ms. Landers, if you could pull the mic forward next
Oh,
time.
I'm sorry, and I'm so sorry because I kind of jumped in and I probably shouldn't have. I'm sorry.
And what's the highest, or what's our liability for vacation? I thought it's like 80 hours, or what's the max?
The max, I'll answer this. Under the policy, the max accrual for vacation is 80 hours.
A year.
The max, let me rephrase that.
Okay.
The max cash value, the max accrual is 80 hours a year. The max cash value, the max cash out at end of employment, I believe, is
Okay.
2 years accrued vacation.
All right, and then whatever the fund is for retirement is 4% of 144,200.
6%.
6%.
I'm sorry, 6% of 144,200. We got sick. We have 6 days, which is part of our policy. Credited, additional. Oh, and then life insurance. Am I missing anything, Tarquin?
Let me go through, if I can go through my notes,
Sure.
I'll answer that question in a moment. Tony, if you want to continue, I'll come back to this.
What's
I
that?
just want to find my notes about detail. But
Okay. Well, I think the board's ready to move.
Well, I just have,
Yeah, well, I mean, that's,
Okay, so for vacation, the payoff pursuant to 2020, annual vacation accrual cap. Vacation may accumulate to a maximum of 2 years accrual. Once the maximum accrual is reached, accrual will cease until vacation reduces below the maximum amount. Vacation payoff, upon termination of employment, employee shall receive an hour of pay for each hour accumulated up to a maximum accrual cap for that employee. And then the accrual level is 13.334 hours per month for,
No, I got that, Darko. The accrual, the vacation, again, it's, the hard costs really is, I don't want to miss any. I just want to go on record that what the hard costs are, which is mainly salary, medical, 6% match, life insurance premium. Anything else, any other? Okay. Nothing comes to my mind other than those. Okay. All right. And Director Maynard, I don't know where, I don't know, 140, 160 for 170 something for hard costs, and then the other stuff, I don't know. I don't know what, life insurance, another $2,000.
This is over 175 for sure.
Yeah, 175.
Because I didn't take all the tallies that you did, but yeah, this is compensation package of over $175,000 a year annually. So,
Okay, I'm done.
Any further discussion? Go ahead and call for a vote. Do you have something pressing?
well, it's really directed at the community because we don't disregard that it's a good chunk of money. And this was discussed when she came on as our interim GM, and there may be some costs here and there. And we didn't take that lightly when we offered the contract. Our next step was to look at the budget, and the budget was cut $20,000 to be able to make up for those differences. And every month, our budget has balanced. We are maintaining that, and we do have a surplus at this point in time. So I appreciate your concern for it, but we're not changing anything that is already in practice. So it's kind of like, I heard what you were saying when I voted because it was a stretch. And we took that next step to say, how do we address the stretch? And with that test, we're doing it. So yeah, that's my only comment is we're not asking anything additional other than we're already carrying.
Yeah, but Director Imnay, we cut programs, recreation programs on our budget, okay, to, in my opinion, to pay for this large, that's my recollection. And again, our Ms. Landers at the interim contract pretty much got everything she asked for. So you know, to say that the way you put it is a little, that's not my recollection from our meetings we had. You know, I can go way back when I interviewed her at what the salary was. It's a lot more now. So in my opinion, it wasn't much of a negotiation back then. So it's a lot of money for this district.
Thank you, Director DeMarco. With that, I'd move for a vote. I suggest we do a roll call here. Is that it?
correct. If it pleases the board, I could simply, since I've drafted them, I could simply read out the new terms of the agreement per section that have changed pursuant to.
I would recommend that. Yes,
Okay.
please, Starkly.
So paragraph section 2, term, it will be evergreen. There's an option for the board under 2G the final to state, employee may receive in the sole and absolute discretion of the board of directors an annual confidential evaluation of performance.
Lost you.
Closer to the mic, closer to the mic.
Sorry. An item that is optional, it's not particularly substantive because it exists anyway, but it states employee may receive in the sole and absolute discretion of the board of directors an annual confidential evaluation for performance. But that's entirely up to the board. We can put it in, not put it in. So entirely up to the board. Then on 4 hours and fringe benefits, subsection C, vacation leave, it will now read as follows. Employees shall be entitled to annual paid vacation in accordance with the district vacation policy, District Policy 2020, as amended on May 12, 2009, and incorporated herein by its reference. The rate of vacation time is earned, accrued, shall be governed by District Policy 2020. Employees shall be included in the full-time 40-hour classification for purposes of calculating all vacation benefits and entitlements pursuant to District Policy 2020. Vacation shall accrue at the over 10 years of service rate pursuant to policy number 2020.10, which is 13.334 hours per month. For purposes of this agreement, employees' vacation leave granted hereunder shall be subject to the annual cap, accrual, and payout provisions of policy numbers 2020 and 21, provided, however, that the 10 days of vacation that was credited to employee at the start of plus any accrued vacation she earned during her 6-month employment as interim general manager shall be retained for the duration of the agreement and shall not be subject to the annual cap, accrual, and payout provisions of policy numbers 2020 and 2021. D, sick personnel leave. Employees shall be entitled to paid sick personnel leave in accordance with the district's sick leave policy, District Policy 2040, as may be amended from time to time and incorporated herein by this reference. The rate at which sick leave is accrued and payable under this agreement shall be governed by the terms of District Policy number 2040. Employees shall be included in the full-time 40-hour classification for purposes of calculating of accrual of sick leave 8 hours per month. Employee is not subject to the probationary period in District Policy 2015.00, and sick/personnel leave is immediately available and not subject to District Policy 2015.10. Employee may use sick leave for employee's own personal reasons pursuant to 4H below. Upon termination, employee shall receive 1 hour of pay for each hour remaining accumulated sick leave, subject to the limitations of Policy 2040.20, which is the annual cap, or the maximum cap. Provided, however, that employee shall retain for the duration of this agreement the 8 hours of sick leave that she was credited with at the start of, and any unused sick leave that accrued during her 6-month employment as interim general manager, which sick leave shall not be subject to the payout limitations of policy number 2040.20. Subsection E, administrative leave. District and employee recognize that employee must devote a great deal of time outside of normal work office hours without the benefit of paid overtime in the conduct of district business. And to that end, employees shall be entitled to and credited with, at the commencement of this agreement and annually thereafter, 5 days of administrative leave. Administrative leave days may be taken at employee's discretion with prior notification to the president of the board. Administrative leave cannot be cashed out. All administrative leave must be used within 12 months of accrual, or it will be lost. No unused administrative leave shall roll over to the following 12-month period. Then 5, Section B, health insurance allowance. Employee receives partial health insurance coverage as part of her retirement benefits package provided by her prior employer. As such, employee expressly waives and agrees that she should not be entitled to any health insurance benefit offered to other district employees or officers, provided, however, that in lieu thereof, employees shall receive an annual health insurance allowance of $20,000, which allowance shall be prorated and paid in semi-monthly installments over the term of this agreement, concurrently with the compensation provided for under this agreement. And those are the end of the revisions, other than the fact that this will be evergreen, and Ms. Landers will be the general manager, not the interim general manager.
Thank you, Tarquin. And Caroline, if we could do a roll call, please.
So roll call vote. Director Maynard? Director Maynard?
Thank you. No.
Director Shade?
Yay.
Director Murney?
Yes.
Director DeMarco?
No.
President Searles?
Yes. Thank you. And thank you all for the proper.
Are
discussion.
we going to see the contract, written contract next month?
For sure. I mean, it's included in our minutes as well, Tarquin.
Correct. I mean, it will be, once the final version is prepared, it'll be reviewed by Director Searles, will then be forwarded to Ms. Landers for signature. All parties will sign. I will sign, I will sign as to form, approve it as to form. Then the agreement will be done. It will then be an official agreement with the board, and obviously it can come back at the next meeting.
If I could ask for a flow of that process, Tarquin, when you send it to me, can you BCC the entire board so that the entire board sees the agreement at that time?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, moving on to agenda item.
Pardon me, I'm
yes,
sorry.
Ms. Landers, yes.
If you don't mind, I would just like to thank the board. And, I'm not surprised. It's very consistent where, both Director DeMarco and Maynard voted no because of their financial concerns. I appreciate the votes that were for this contract, but I also want to recognize the really positive remarks that were made about how I've been doing here, and I just really appreciate those being said publicly. I think that Tony offered me a bonus, but we'll not hold him to that. But anyway,
I'm sure it's coming.
well, I don't know. It's up to you. But anyway, I do want to express my appreciation. I have been enjoying working here. I feel like we're making progress. I feel like we're going to continue to make progress. I love working with the folks that I have on my staff, and I love working with you, all of you. So I just wanted to express my thank you.
Thank you. And with that, you get to do the next agenda item, general manager's items.
Oh, man, can I go home? Okay. My report. So we touched on the fact that the investment committee met, and we didn't have a recommendation to make yet. We will, the committee will. So the committee met on October 22nd to review the investment alternatives with California Class and Camp, and to discuss the current investments and how they compare to LAIF, which is what we currently use. Our investment policy does not currently allow investments to either Class or Camp. The investment committee asked that we review what their responsibilities included. They wanted to be sure that they actually could come back to the board with recommended changes in the investment policy, and I believe that what the policy says is broad enough to do that. So what I'd like to do is reschedule, maybe in January, a meeting of the investment committee so that we can start working on a change in the investment policies and a recommendation to the board specifically on some potentially other investments to be made. And I just want to stop briefly and ask Director Shade and Maynard, was there anything on that you wanted to add before I go on?
Ladies first.
No, it was a great meeting that we had, and we did make a recommendation and something that we're going to move forward to, and at the appropriate time, I think Mr. Director Maynard will introduce that.
The main thing, as we discussed investments and we were looking at cash flow and stuff, where we feel that the current investment definition by policy, it's just an investment committee. And what I think, and I think our general manager and Director Shade agrees, is the scope is limited and it should actually be more of a monetary policy committee, making monetary choices of cash flow, of thresholds, of a lot more than just, hey, should we move something from LAIF to this other secured place? So in the past, our investment committee has been very limited because we had restricted funds, these funds, but to me, it seems like what the district really needs is a monetary policy committee that goes beyond just investments. And that's what we're going to be drafting, basically a whole new charter, if you will, for this committee.
Any
Okay.
questions? Sounds great. Thank you both, and thank you, Ms. Landers.
And then to go on, I'm really pleased to say that on November 7th, we had a pre-construction meeting with the contractor for the shade canopy, Ortco, and the construction manager, Interwest, and our park superintendent, Romero. And we have currently planned to schedule the beginning of construction for the first week in December, December 1st. We'll get information out to the community so that they'll be aware of what's going on and activity, but also noise. You know, we'll make sure that noise is within whatever the county requirements are, but we do want them to be aware of that. And really, it's very exciting that we're finally moving forward with that. Really good. There's going to be a first annual Rossmoor Community Forum scheduled from 5 to 7 on November 20th, so this is around the corner, where residents can engage with many of the agencies that provide services to Rossmoor community. And the list of who we're expecting so far are OC Fire Authority, Vector Control, OC Sheriff, OC Public Works, OC Transit Authority, and then the Office of Assemblyman Treetop, thank you, and the Office of Supervisor Janet Nguyen. This event is going to be in our auditorium here on the 20th. And I'll be working with Tarquin to figure out if that's something that we should provide formal notification for using Brown Act requirements, so that if it turns out that more than 2 of you want to show up and speak, you can. Otherwise, we'd have to provide restrictions on what you can do. And I don't know who's going to come, but I don't know that we want to restrict you. So you could let us know, you know, what your plan might be, but probably we'll do it as a Brown Act meeting notification otherwise. And then planning is underway for the 2025 Winter Festival to be held in Rush Park on Saturday, December 13th from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. And we'll be making some modifications to stay within our reduced recreation budget on that. Stay tuned to what those will be. There'll be some, you'll see some surprises. I attended the Los Alamitos Chamber. I mentioned this luncheon at the Edson facility today. I also am scheduled to attend an annual luncheon with CJPIA Representative Lucy Brockheimer on November 25th. And I went to the Rossmoor Women's Club luncheon yesterday as well. So I'm just trying to get out and about. And I think, there's a little bit more. Chris Argueta and I met with Emmeline Noda from the City of Los Alamitos to discuss joint senior programming using our facilities, which they would provide senior programming free of charge to us because they really need to use facilities. So you're going to be seeing more information on that. And then finally, this is really good news. This is something Carolyn worked on for quite a while. On October 24th, 2025, we received notification from the State Franchise Tax Board that our tax exempt status for the Public Improvement Financing Corporation has been reinstated and is now in good standing, in case we ever want to use that. Yeah, it was a lot of work on Carolyn's part. And again, I just want to thank our staff, because everything I do is not by myself, but it's a team effort. And we're really lucky to have a super group of people, dedicated, really willing to jump in. So I just want to acknowledge that. And our attorney as well.
Thank you. Moving on to board, were any questions for Ms. Landers from her report? Okay. Moving on to board member items. Director DeMarco.
I brought it up with the captain about the two accidents we had in the same day, which were, one was pretty traumatic, where the car lost control and ran into a garage and I think almost destroyed it. Just slow down. People slow down. The car hit the dips, it looked like, and just lost control. I don't know how it got up to such a high speed. It's only like 100 feet from Los Al Boulevard, but if Sharon, if you could just remind the captain, it would be nice to have a report. Okay, and again,
We'll get him a copy of a past example.
yeah,
Yeah.
just something so we can put in the minutes, and it would be great to have it beforehand so people could, because usually people would have comments on it. CR&R is going to be at our forum? No?
So I was just going through that list. The people at the forum are representing other government agencies. We could figure out another way. Wasn't CR&R, I thought it was the sidewalk company that we were asked to bring in.
Sorry.
CR&R.
No.
Am I right?
No, trash.
Street
Oh, no,
sweeping.
street sweeping. Street
Yeah, it
sweeping.
was street sweeping that we were talking about. It was
Yeah, but
during
street
that
sweeping's
item.
going to be at our forum.
No,
Oh.
it's not contractors, it's government agencies.
Oh, okay. So, all right, thank you for clarifying that. So, another thing that happened, because it happened on my street, and I don't know how many times this happens, but, so the CR&R trash truck, so they, again, because of, and I don't blame this entirely on CR&R, but it's because of the stringent regulations from the state of California that says you got to pick up all 3 trash cans, that if you don't have enough, trash trucks, it's like impossible to do it in a day. But they miss, they miss our cans a lot, especially the third one. I would love to have a representative from CR&R just to go over some issues. Another big issue that happened on my street was the truck had a malfunction with hydraulics, spilled it all over the street, and a company came 2 or 3 days later to, I guess, clean it up. All I saw was a big tank with a pressure washer. I don't know where the hydraulic fluid went. It probably just went down. I don't know. I didn't see, I saw a big tank of water. I didn't see a vacuum. But, I mean, the district office should, I would think, be told when we have a spill like that and you have to clean it up, even though it's not in our jurisdiction. But, no one else is being told. Our general manager should be told by CR&R, hey, we had a hydraulic failure and X number of quarts of hydraulic fluid, spilled on Bostonian Drive, So just a concern. I mean, they definitely had to clean up a few days later. So those are two, Ms. Landers, the street sweeping. I mean, we should see somebody from street sweeping. I mean, they should have been here tonight because we're voting on getting the cost of living adjustment. They should probably be here. No, but now I'm talking street sweeping. Oh, okay. But street sweeping and CR&R. We don't have the contract for CR&R, but their trucks are in our community constantly. So it would be nice to have a representative. And I remember when this contract was signed this last time, they had 8 employees here. And I asked them, hey, are you going to come back? Is this the only time we're going to see, oh, no, we're going to come back? And they haven't been back yet since. And there's issues and concerns about trash. There's issues and concerns about street sweeping. So they should come and visit more than none, meaning 0 times a year, at least once. So again, just my recommendation if we can get him here.
Can I also make a comment?
Yep.
That CR&R is under Orange County Waste and Recycling.
Okay.
And I recently reached out to one of their executives to raise some of the issues that we've had. And so in addition to our asking the company to come in, I think we might want to see if we can get somebody from Orange County Waste and Recycling to come as well.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
good. I mean, just to enlighten whoever is towards the top of our issues to see if we can mitigate some of them. I think that's about it. Ms. Landers, welcome. You know, again, this wasn't about you personally, it was about the contract, and look forward to working with you. Feel free to call me, contact me. Been at several meetings with you. You know, the board has spoke, and so everything's, I'm good with the, you know, the decision, because the board, you know, we made it as a board, so look forward to working with you. Okay? Thank you.
Director Rimney.
Outside of the committee meetings that have been reported here, I attended the ISDOC quarterly luncheon and a couple of days ago, maybe last week. And the two main items that came out of that there was, it's an interesting thing with ISDOC because it's a heavily water district group of people. So in talking about all the issues of the water districts, they handle things at a very high level of how it affects their operations. But there was conversation about how things basically trickle down into the lower levels of things. How, and I weighed in a little bit on this, saying that we tell people to conserve. We tell people that it's important to pay attention to runoff from our streets and everything like that. So there's an ongoing interest, and I'll be following up on it, to say, give us materials that we can give people the why in addition to the what. So if we're supposed to do these things, educating, because they really stressed that educating the communities as to why the things happen is important. So that was the main thing that came out of that part. The other thing was a report from Chris Palmer with CSDA, and every 2 years we are required as elected officials and various people and agencies to take the AB 1234 training, which pertains to Brown Act and ethics and responsibilities. And there were substantial changes made to AB 1234 in this legislative session that were signed into place by Governor Newsom. Some affect us, some don't. However, one of the reasons that it's an every 2-year requirement is these laws change all the time. So anybody that needs to or wants to refresh themselves as to what's happening, one of the benefits we have through the CSDA is the ability for getting free training on these state-required things. And so if I'm not tracking who needs to take them, who doesn't, but the information is great anyhow. On December 10th, usually what happens is there are sessions that are open to us, and then subsequently these sessions are presented as recorded on-demand items that we can look at. This one in particular is December 10th. It's a live session with one of the attorneys that's associated with the CSDA to be able to answer any live questions that anybody might have in regards to that. So if you want to take advantage of the two-way communication and the opportunities to do that, plus fulfill your state requirements as an elected official, it's a great opportunity.
Great. Director Shade.
Thank you for that, Ms. Director Remney. I appreciate those dates. So I'd like to say welcome, Sharon. Thank you for doing everything that you do. I want to tell you that today's event, I missed it at the Ibsen. I go to that every single year. I was bummed that I missed it this year because I'm ridiculously crazy at work for me, but I'm bummed that I wasn't able to go. I missed it, and I thought about it while I was in the office today. Anyway, your attendance at all the community events that you attend, within Rossmoor, I know you've attended everything, and outside of Rossmoor, and I appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you at the chamber meetings, because we are highly involved with the chamber, and I know they're also going to be planning, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't they having their breakfast, Christmas breakfast coming up as well? Like, isn't that the day before the Winterfest? Something.
It's actually, I think, isn't it, it's the 12th, yes.
It's the 12th. So
And
it's
Art
like,
Fest is the 13th.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the chamber breakfast that we
At
have here.
7:30.
That is an amazing event
Yeah.
as well. It's wonderful that Los Al Choir usually comes in and does Christmas carols. It's huge. It's a beautiful event. It's wonderful. So I look forward to that. Again, just thank you for attending and getting so involved in the community as you have. We had Jody Robanis speaking tonight, and I know she speaks from the heart. She's somebody that's been involved in the community and knows this community for a very long time, and she's deeply involved in education, and she's fully immersed in our community, and she does so much, and she speaks volumes on everything that she's done for so many years. So when she speaks highly of you, I don't know, how she's gotten a hold of you or how she's gotten to know you, but I commend her, because that's Jody. And I love that that you've gotten to know her somewhat as well. So all the positive comments and stuff are just wonderful that I hear, that you are involved with different residents and attending different things is just wonderful. It's very appreciated. It shows how much you're involved. I want to speak to the resource forum that we're having coming up on the 20th of this month from 5 to 7 p.m. here at Rush Park Auditorium, where we're going to be having several guests, including OC Fire Authority, OC Sheriff's Department, OC Vector, Transit Authority, OC Public Works, and several others. So I encourage our community to come and join, because this is a great opportunity to get to know who operates our community and what they do, and learn all about that. So it's a wonderful event. I will be here. I thank you for doing this. And I'd like to thank Captain Pierce for his report. I look forward to a more comprehensive report like we've had in the past. So just getting him started on that and giving us like the data that we're looking for really for the community that is helpful and educational as well for any sort of crime that's going on in our neighborhood, including most importantly the opportunity crimes as what they call them, because people do things like leave their doors open and their car doors open and things like that of that nature, as well as the e-bike education and what's going on with that. I'd like to hear what the enforcement is that they are doing, because it's a huge concern. And I'm wondering if he was aware, or did he see any of the picture damage that has been happening? He has. I figured he did. I just wanted to see. So he's aware of what these guys are doing. And welcome, welcome, welcome. That's it.
Director Maynard.
Thank you. I want to thank Brad from Rams who came, but more importantly, when I look at the report, we got a great report, and there's so many people to thank. The fact that we had our previous accountant, Michael, and our new accountant, Josh. We had a previous general manager, Joe Mendoza. We have our current new general manager. Welcome aboard. And in all of that transition, coming up with a spotless, unmodified report is commendable. And I want to just recognize that we had so many changes at all levels, and the district passed with flying colors. We have the right systems in place, and we have an exceptional audit report like we're accustomed to. I was a little concerned with all the moving pieces, so I just want to call out, and thanks to Josh, Michael, Joe, you, staff, everyone that made that happen. I'm very happy with how the e-bike prohibition is happening. One thing I want to encourage is proper training for staff, of how to enforce ordinances. This is not a policy. This will be an ordinance. This has teeth. And if the guys who are out there the most, people on Omero's team, when they see things, are they equipped? Are they trained to go and tell people to stop? And then the next level, and Searle's kind of alluded to this, is you can hire extra people, but there is currently a way that you can look into of where you literally deputize our employees, so they're almost like park rangers, if you will, so that they possibly could do a citation. And that might be something that we do need to look into. Does that require extra training? Is that a pay grade upgrade? Does staff even want that? But the fact that these e-bikes have done damage to our property, and we're going to now have ordinances, I think some training and some thought needs to go in how to equip staff to actually handle those issues. And look at what is the realm of the possible, and what do we think we can do, but let's come up with a plan. And I've mentioned this earlier, this goes to the accidents that Tony mentioned. People drive too fast in Rossmoor. Our board, in the previous board before you were on board, Mary Ann, we all kind of, it's not a policy, but we all kind of voted and took the census that we all believe that slower speeds saves lives, protects property, and if we ever could have a 25 mile per hour speed limit just throughout Rossmoor to make it easy, because our 35 mile per hour Montecito St. Cloud is actually faster than some areas of Los Al Boulevard, and to me that just makes no sense. I think pursuing that 25 mile per hour, we need to discuss again, make sure we're aligned, and ask help of our supervisor to make it happen, because there is a path that doesn't require public works and studies and stuff. New laws say that affected community leaders, which would be our supervisor, and the rest of the supervisors can actually take action, especially when it comes to lowering speed, not raising speed, but lowering speed, and I think it's something we should talk about. But that's all I've got.
I definitely want to thank the board, the community, for our discussion regarding Ms. Landers, and welcome, but definitely glad that you're still here. Really appreciate the discussion. I want to kind of follow up with for next Thursday for the event. I would like if we could set up an email address for residents to send emails or topics, so we could provide those to any of the attendees so they could maybe be prepared for things that matter. I remember one of our speakers came and discussed something that was completely irrelevant to Rossmoor. It was a canned presentation, and I'd really like to avoid that, of someone coming and just saying, oh, let's talk about, let's say, mountain lions. We don't have mountain lions. Let's not have a discussion about mountain lions. Let's talk about mosquitoes draining the storm channels. Maybe tomorrow we're going to find out about how well the community drains in general. But if we could, when we send out our next notice about the item for next Thursday, that we include an email address where we can have questions or topics that residents care about sent. And even if we're not able to get that moved forward with the agenda on Thursday, we can have that as something we want to make sure we follow up on as well. To Director DeMarco, it was my goal for next Thursday, and I think, Chris has been great. This is the first time he's really carrying the ball on this one. So Chris is on this, but it was my goal to have SCA, CR&R, everybody who does any service to Rossmoor here. If you're in here as a contractor or a representative, that you would be here to meet with residents, because I think, as I said previously, my goal with this is, I don't like when we get two different people coming on two different nights and they point the finger at each other and we don't get a resolution. And so my goal with this was to be able to get to that point where we have, in particular, vector control and public works in the same room, because we've had them come and talk about the storm channels, and they say, well, it's about a vector control issue, and then no, it's a public works issue. And together, we need to have a solution. And I think if we can get them in the same room, we have a better chance of getting that done. The same with, street sweeping. I went street sweeping here with the county supervisor because they answer to the county supervisors. The same with, as you were talking about with the CR&R and public waste and recycling and waste. Getting the people who make the decisions together with our contractors is important to me. So that will be something we move forward, and we're already thinking about how to improve it, even though we haven't even had the first. I hope everyone can make it, because I would like to have the board here for those topics and discussions as well. I would love to be able to say, here's some things going on in Rossmoor. You don't have to respond now, but let's start thinking about where you're going to answer these things if we don't have time. It is going to be a quick event with the number of attendees, but I do look forward to hosting it, and I hope many of our residents can make it. Again, I want to thank Captain Pierce for making it tonight. Had a couple times I've gotten to talk with him, and I really enjoy his presence. Director Maynard, I think your question to him about staffing was a great one. And essentially, we get two captains for the price of one. Captain Pierce he's the guy who knows every officer's details of every minute of their lives. And so that's nice to have a captain who really manages the people who do the work. And then Captain Sotelo, he knows what's going on in Santa Ana, and he knows kind of the back scene of the politics and the labor and the money. And so it's great to have somebody who can talk to the officers, and then there's also someone on our side who's talking to the folks in Santa Ana about the resources. So it's great to have them both, and it's great to have Captain Pierce here tonight. I think that's enough for tonight. It's already 10:15. And so with that, I will ask if Tarquin has any comments.
I've spoken enough this evening.
All right. Thank you all. And at 10:12, we adjourn the meeting. Thank you.